Okay, I call this meeting, the Board of Curators, to order. I'd like to welcome everyone in today's board meeting, including those listening via live stream. It's great to be visiting the Umkc campus again. Thank you to Chancellor Agrawal and Chief Baumgartz and all the outstanding Umkc officers that are in the room and helping us all get organized and seated today. We have established a quorum. Correct, Cindy? Okay. We're just waiting for Julia. I think she'll be joining us virtually. But to begin our meeting today, I'd like to ask Curator Holbrook to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Greg, I turn it over to you.
Thank you very much. Would we all stand, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Curator Holbrook. That's something new that we have decided to do at our curator meetings. And thank you for the idea, Greg, to do it. And then thank you for leading us in it. Okay. I'd now like to ask the board secretary to administer the oath of office for our newest member of the board. Curator Holloway, would you please join Cindy at the podium?
And can you get close to the mic?
Goodness.
Raise your right hand.
Right here.
All right. I, Keith Holloway.
I, Keith Holloway,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Missouri,
and the Constitution of the State of Missouri,
and that I will faithfully demean myself
and I will faithfully demean myself
as a member of the Board of Curators
as a member of the Board of Curators
of the University of Missouri System.
of the University of Missouri System.
All right. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
Congratulations, Curator Holloway. It's an honor and a privilege to serve on this board and to serve with you.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Okay, we're going to change the order of business a little bit this morning. We're going to jump right into the Finance meeting. Curator Holbrook, I now turn it over to you for the Finance Committee meeting.
Thank you very much, Chairman Chapman. Again, and changing the order of things again, we're going to change the orders of the agenda. We're going to go to the action items first. We'll do the information items second. We'll take the action items in the order in which they appear in your book. So with that, Vice President Ryan Rapp, would you please give us our presentation?
Yes, thank you, Curator Holbrook. The first item that we'll cover today is the use of the strategic dividend. And if you recall, this is something that we discussed last, I guess it would have been last December and November. The dividend is $56 million for this year, and it's generated from our general pool investments, which Tom Richards, our Chief Investment Officer, will review with you later. In 2018, the board and the president had established that this would be used strategically to fund the Missouri compacts. And then when the board approved resource allocation principles last December, or in November of 2020, it established that they would be used and split amongst the universities based upon their share of the general pool, and then that the board would review and approve each chancellor's proposed use of the dividend. So, as Tom will go into more detail, we had a 7.7% return, which is historically a high amount for the general pool for FY21. We split that amongst the universities based on the shares that they earned. Just in summary, that's roughly $39 million for MU, almost $5 million for Umsl, 5.7 for Umkc, and 6.5 for S&T. And then each university in your materials has contained how they will be using these funds as it relates to their strategic priorities. For MU, it will be used to support research growth. You can see more detail contained in the materials. At S&T, Chancellor Degani will talk later about his master plan and capital plans. It will be used to fund the Student Experience Center. For UMKC, it will be used to address some student and success spaces and classroom spaces that were identified in the master plan at the last meeting. And then consistent with Umsl's plans to consolidate space and relocate some student services on their campus, it will be used to move forward their capital plan. With that, I'd be happy to take any questions the board might have in relation to the strategic dividend.
Thank you, Vice President Rapp. Any questions from members of the board and/or members of the Finance Committee? Okay, I have one. I only have one this time. Ryan, I understand that that this is paid out of the investment of the strategic pool return, but how do we decide that it's $39 million?
56.
56. How does that calculation done to decide on that 7.5% return, how much of that we get to, how we use that?
So think of it this way, on our general pool, that's really the working capital that the different units have. We pay a bank rate of interest on that back to the units. This represents then the earnings over and above that. Our target is to annually pay a dividend of $25 million. We've set as a floor, we will always pay a dividend of $15 million, and then we risk adjust that. We went through this with our investment advisory committee, and we do risk reserve some of those earnings and hold those to manage volatility in the investment pool. But when we have returns of this year, then there's an amount that gets calculated over and above that that's distributed. So we had an exceedingly good year, which I wouldn't expect this amount to be $56 million every year. I think, our target, again, is to produce a dividend of $25 million.
Thank you. Any other questions? Hearing none. May I have a motion from a member of the Finance Committee to approve the strategic use of investment earnings from the University of Missouri system as presented to you and outlined in your materials?
So moved. Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor, this is the Finance Committee, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Hearing none, the motion fails. Mr. Chairman.
Passes.
Huh? Passes. Thank you. What did I say? Oh. It passes. Mr. Chairman, on behalf of the Finance Committee, we move to recommend to the full board the strategic use of investment earnings from the University of Missouri system as presented to you and outlined in the materials for this meeting to be approved.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second from the board?
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Do we have any abstentions? Okay, the motion carries. Okay, turn it back over to you, Curator Holbrook.
Thank you, Chair Chapman. Ryan, to the next topic, and that is the S&T master plan.
That'll be our last item. I know we've moved things around. The next item is the fiscal year 22 mid-year deviations to the capital plans.
I apologize. Would you like to give us that, please?
I'll give a brief overview. This, keep in mind, every April, we bring forward to the board a rolling 5-year capital plan, and we established a process whereby any proposed changes to that capital plan could be made mid-year, and so what we will go through today, and it was highlighted in your mailing materials in the red text, that represents the changes from the plan that was approved in fiscal year, in April of 21. I think as we look at this, you'll see this highlights what is included in those plans, and it's any new construction projects greater than $5 million, anything that would be a renovation or infrastructure project greater than $8 million. It would also include any project that has planned debt. And then we also have our aspirational strategic project plan, which is something that we haven't incorporated into our finance plan, but is something that campuses are working on, and those are listed in your materials. What I'll just briefly go over is where were the deviations. For MU, there were some significant changes, and really bringing those projects into alignment with some of the, well, I'm skipping around here. This reflects the additional research investments that we're looking to make at MU, and part of the bigger plan we've been working with the president and the rest of the leadership team on at MU. So you see an expansion of the MU research reactor facility, radioisotope facility at Discovery Ridge. This would be, again, funded by a federal grant. And then you see some renovations and expansion of some additional research facilities across the campus. And the final item would be the fitting out of the 4th floor of the next-gen facility. Additionally, then, on the aspirational list, we did remove some of the items as we looked at prioritizing others. And then there are some projects that we're contemplating in the future, which include the second phase of the Bond Life Sciences Center, maintenance and repair of Jesse Hall, along with some additional electrical distribution work we have to do at the Medical Science Building. For S&T, I think you'll see those changes are really going to be reflected in what you're going to hear later today from Chancellor Degani on their master plan, and it's really focused on the Arrival District, also the new Manufacturing Missouri Ecosystem Building 1, and then there is an aspirational project that was added related to a subsurface parking structure. And then Umsl just has really not made changes to the overall plan, but made some modifications to how they're working on consolidating their campus. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions members of the Finance Committee or Board might have.
Are there any questions for Executive Vice President Ryan Rapp? Okay. I'm sure I have one or two. You understand, he and I talk about a lot of this, and I still have questions as I get into this. We're making a lot of investments toward research at the MU campus, and I really support that. But my concern is long-term relative. How are we going to keep up with repairs and maintenance? And then also, you know, we still have to deal with some of our other operations like athletics and housing. So how's this all going to fit in?
So I think we still have work to do in that space, and we are working on updating our financial plans and resetting that coming out of COVID. I would fully expect that what you'll see when we bring the financial plans forward this spring to the board for approval, along with those capital plans, that we will address those items. We know we have to address the maintenance and repair components of those. And then I think for the auxiliaries you've mentioned, we've got to continue to work with athletics to understand what their capital needs are. For residential life and housing, you know, I don't think we're talking about expanding our housing footprint. I think, you know, if we're going to do anything there, we're going to look to really the private sector to provide that for us. That being said, we will need to look at our current housing stock and understand what maintenance and repair we might have there. So I would expect to see those items reflected in the capital plan that's brought forward to the board next April.
Thank you.
Ryan, I just want to say I appreciate what you just said about housing, because we can spend a lot of money on it and do a good job, but we can go out and get a private third party to do a better job, in my opinion, and we can move that money into something that's going to move the needle better, research or whatever it may be. So I appreciate your thoughts on that.
Yeah, and we've had, specifically at MU, I think we've been able to see some success with, if you know, kind of on the edge of campus, you have seen there's been a growth in third-party housing, and we've been able to successfully partner with them. So I think that lets us kind of flex to meet demand when it does increase, but doesn't put us in a position where we've been in the past of where we're sitting on housing stock that we're having a hard time getting occupied.
Thank you.
Anybody else? I have a couple more, Ryan. MU Health. I see on your aspirational goals another $66 million out there on some more building. We just incurred a lot of debt relative to the moving of Women's and Children's Hospital, the debt we incurred to complete Next Gen and all such. I'm asking about our capacity in the future to borrow that money, because obviously we're not going to be able to internally finance this.
That's correct. I think we will, as part of the financial plan we're undertaking right now, I know it's listed as debt today, but we have a lot of work to do with MU Healthcare and others to really come back and say, here is what our debt capacity is and debt affordability looks like relative to the capital plans and financial plans we have. So when we bring those forward in February and April, we'll be able to have a more in-depth discussion about, is this really a project we're going to be able to pursue, and can we afford it? So it's currently listed there, but there's additional work we need to do.
And then my final question is relative to the S&T campus. I understand we're making changes to align with their master plans, and I understand the future needs on the campus as things go forward in this ecosystem building project that we're talking about down there. I know it relies a lot on state support. Have you and the Chancellor talked about what happens or how we can make this happen if we don't have the state support?
So I think that's been a discussion that between the President and Chancellor Degani, and I'll give an answer, and if the Chancellor has anything to add, because I think that's what we're undertaking right now is how do we figure out to get this project moving forward. It's not that we don't want state support, but in some ways looking at the playbook we took with NextGen that said we're going to move forward with this project. And we're going to show that we're going to get something done in this space, and then we can work with other donors in the state to see what additional money they might be able to bring to the table.
And then finally, I see a parking garage at S&T, a subsurface parking garage at S&T. Is there really a need for this? And can you give me an idea of the cost differential of being an underground garage as opposed to an above-ground garage?
So I'll give you what I know to date on the cost differential. Keep in mind it's currently listed as an aspirational project, and then I'll speak at a high level, but I will let Chancellor Degani speak to the specific need. It is significantly an underground parking garage. We believe is at least 50% more expensive than just a freestanding above-ground parking garage, and would be, probably a surface lot would be probably closer to, it would be 10% of the cost of an underground parking garage. As far as the need goes, I believe it relates to the concept that he's going to discuss in the master plan related to the arrival district, but I don't think we've yet completed any type of study or analysis to say what does the parking demand look like in Rolla, Missouri. But I don't know, Chancellor Degani, I'll let you add anything.
Well, first of all, thank you, Ryan. I must say that from our perspective, it's not an aspirational project. It's a need, to tell you the truth. From our perspective, everybody thinks of Rolla as a place, why do you need a parking structure in Rolla? But our campus is condensed like any other campuses, and we've done the analysis of the cost. The surface parking will be $1 million. On the structure on the surface is about $5.8 million, and the subsurface structure is $9.4 million. Keep in mind that if we do not do subsurface structure, we have to spend $1 million of fill dirt and preparation for the arrival district. So there is $1 million less than 9.5, if you will, for the cost. I can tell you that one of the donors who gave a significant amount of money for the arrival district requested, he said, we need to have a subsurface parking there, and I can divulge some detail on that later on when I actually will present. But from our perspective, from every analysis, it's aspirational, but we've done everything we could to delineate necessary and desirable. And we think this is necessary.
Mo, I appreciate everything you're doing in Rolla. I think you know this, but I think you've done a tremendous job. I was born in Rolla, and I struggle with, even a parking structure, much less an underground parking structure. There's a lot of, I know the campus is condensed, but there's a lot of land around there. And I also know you've got a donor, and I think that's wonderful. I guess my question to you is, would you be, let's say that surface parking's $1 million and it's pretty close by, and you spend $10 million on the perfect underground parking garage, aren't you better to maybe try to raise that money, which you've been very successful at, spend that $1 million and put that nine-ish million into manufacturing or into something that, I'm going back to the building dorms. I feel like over the years, we've spent $5 and $10 million here and there, and I just want to take, because I think capital's precious, and we need to put it where it really matters. And I know you've got a lot of great projects. I guess that's my question. Are you better off to settle for the, and to be clear, I want to listen, I want to understand, but are you better off to take that money and really put it where you can move the needle?
Well, as you can imagine, we've done a lot of debating on that internally, externally, talking to our constituencies. We've done multiple surveys, strike surveys, sent out reviews. We've collected a whole host of data. And subsurface parking has been on the top of the list. I must tell you that you are right. We have very many irons in the fire. We have a lot of projects. The Missouri manufacturing ecosystem is a big one for us, and there'll be some conversations about that as well. But it is hard to, you think of Rolla and you think there is a lot of land around. First of all, land that can be surface parking is limited. Keep in mind that we have about 2,000 wells on campus for our geothermal. So some of those land is not available for building or a structure or things of that nature. And the land that's available, we have to purchase. And they are not that close to the campus, believe it or not. I mean, that was my own first reaction. Do we need a parking structure in Rolla when people can walk half a mile, from where they park their car to come to an event? But survey after survey, our trustees, our donors, we were very successful in raising the money for the arrival district, but this parking garage always comes up as there is a need on campus for parking. Incidentally, we are going to use the space for other purposes as well. It's not going to be, purely, just from time to time we have need for wide open space, and that's also in the planning as well.
Thank you.
Could you just elaborate for me why subsurface versus a surface structure?
It is the closest and least, visibly disruptive location for 4 or 5 of our main buildings, like our student union, like the Student Innovation Center that we are building, like the Welcome Center. It is very, very centrally located, and you can arrive, park your car, pop up the staircases, and you are in the middle of the most, popular buildings in our campus. And as I said, we have a very steep grade in the area where we want to do our central green, we either have to bring 1,000 loads of trucks and fill them, or dig the ground a little and put a parking garage in there. It's just a strategic location, the survey results indicating the need, the desire of the donors. As I mentioned, one of our largest donors for the arrival district said, I will give you the money, but I ask you to put a parking garage in here.
Okay.
Are there any other questions?
How many spaces are in this parking garage?
180?
180?
Yep.
Are there any other questions? Seeing none, may I have a motion and a second from the committee to approve the fiscal 2022 mid-year deviation to capital plans for MU MU Healthcare, UMKC, Missouri S&T, and UMSL, as presented to you and outlined in your materials.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Are there any abstentions? The motion passes. Mr. Chairman, on behalf of the Finance Committee, we move to recommend to the full board the fiscal year 2022 mid-year deviation of capital plans for MU Healthcare, UMKC, Missouri S&T, UMSL, as presented to you and outlined in the materials for this meeting, be approved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any further discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed say nay. Do we have any abstentions? Okay, the motion passes. I turn it back over to you, Curator
Thank you,
Hobart.
Chairman Chapman. And Ryan, I turn it back over to you for the Veterinary Medicine Diagnostic Laboratory.
Thank you, Curator Holbrook. There's no slides in your materials. Through the legislative session this year and from the governor, we were appropriated $15 million for the Veterinary Medicine Diagnostic Laboratory. Then $15 million will be provided from external gifts and external resources the university has received. This building, the current building, was built in 1970, and I think it's 22,000 square feet. We'll be building something slightly larger than that, and it will help us continue to meet the needs of the state and also the research agenda of the university. With that, I'd be happy to take any questions. And again, this was included in the proposed capital plan from MU in April, and so it's been something we've been working on for a couple of years now, but I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Is this the biggest piece of the accreditation that the vet school talks about?
Yes, this is important also. I should have noted that. It's also important to them for their accreditation.
Are there any other questions? I don't really have a question, Ryan, but I do have a comment. I want to take a moment just to thank the legislature and the governor for the support in seeing this project through. It's going to have great value to the university, the research mission, and the support of agriculture in the state of Missouri. Are there any further comments or questions? Hearing none. I got to find my spot. If there are no further discussions, may I have a motion and a second from the committee to approve the University of Missouri-Columbia Veterinary Medicine Diagnostic Laboratory?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? Are there any abstentions? The motion passes. Mr. Chairman, on behalf of the Finance Committee, we may move to recommend to the full board of the University of Missouri-Columbia Veterinary Medicine Diagnostic Laboratory project be approved.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
So moved. Second.
Okay, motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed say nay. Do we have any abstentions? Okay, the motion passes. Curator Holbrook, I turn it back over to you.
Thank you very much. Vice President Rapp, would you like to go through the naming opportunities for MU?
I appreciate everyone accommodating our changes in schedule. The next item Tom Richards, our Chief Investment Officer, as an information item, will present the returns of the results of our FY21 investment returns.
Good morning. Thank you for your time this morning. It's a pleasure to be able to get up and present maybe historic returns for the university. So that's always a good thing and a good place to be. I wanted to start out just by reminding the board there is a consent item on the agenda for the reappointment of Veris, who's the university's general consultant. Jeff McLean, who's the CEO of Veris, is our consultant that handles the university's relationship. He had a travel conflict today and was unable to come to the meeting. But just wanted to point that out. I also want to just take a second. I wanted to introduce Sarah Anderson over there. She's been a key part of the investment office, and she's celebrating her 15th year with the university, and has been a great help in building out the investment team, and has been a big part of the success of our investing program. Just as a broad overview, just to point out the assets under management that the team is responsible for, we've really doubled in size since I've been in the role these past 10 years. In particular, this last year with the fantastic markets, thanks to the Federal Reserve, by the way. But the assets under management grew by $2.3 billion, up about 26%. And total, inclusive of the Alpha program, we're right at about $11.2 billion. So in terms of actual performance for FY21, again, it was a great year. And again, obviously, the Federal Reserve had a lot to do with it. The congressional stimulus had a lot to do with it. But we'll take the markets and capture the returns. I'm also pleased to report that beyond just the benchmark returns, we were able to achieve significant excess returns over our benchmark, due primarily across the board to active management by our managers, and then strategic decisions that the staff had made in terms of positioning the portfolio. Overall, across the three pools, we generated $1.7 billion of net investment income in FY21, and the value created by exceeding the benchmarks across the three pools amounted to about $300 million. In general, on the table, again, we're showing the excess return above benchmark. So, for example, for the retirement plan, the actual return was 28.7%. The benchmark, the board benchmark, was 24, so we exceeded it by 4.7. The 4.7 is broken out then in terms of 2.8% of that being driven by the standard core part of the portfolio, and 1.9% of that excess being driven by the Alpha program, which I'll cover and had a very successful year. So we call this the cone chart, and the cone chart in my mind is all about accountability. And what this represents is, with a starting point of September 2017, which was a point of major shift in asset allocation that was approved by the board at that point, the green line that you see in the center of the cone represents the expected modeled return that we've been operating under and has been adjusted over the time. So when we do asset allocation exercises and we come to the board with an expected return, the board approves the asset allocation mix. That green line represents what we expect to generate. The cones around that represent the first cone with the thin blue line is 1 standard deviation on either side, and the thick blue line is 2 standard deviations. So what we're really showing here is what's actually happened relative to what we brought to the board and what the expectations were. So we're tracking very nicely. The red line represents the cumulative actual performance, in this case for the retirement plan. You'll see that the dip, which was in March of 2020, so at the bottom of kind of the COVID market crisis, you'll see that the performance did drop down, and then we're back up above the line given the performance in the past year. But in terms of accountability, the main message, the main takeaway from this is that obviously statistically, when we show an expected return, it's a median of a wide range of outcomes. And statistically, we would expect that roughly 2/3 of our outcomes would happen within the inner cone. So getting back to the cone chart. So long way to say that this is a way at a very high level to show accountability for expectations versus actual results. And just another chart in there for the endowment, the same really idea. So translating the percentage returns just into dollars, this is sometimes helpful to see for the retirement plan and the endowment pool. For example, a retirement plan, we started out the year at $3.6 billion. The university and our employees put approximately $130 million of contributions into the plan. We paid out roughly $284 million of benefits, and then investment income added about $1 billion. So we started the year in the plan at $3.6 billion. We ended at about $4.5. Similar story on the endowment, about $87 million of endowment gifts, of actual cash gifts going in. We paid out $90 million in distributions that support a wide range of endowed chairs, scholarships, et cetera, and generated about $500 million of investment income. So ending the year at $2.2 billion. One of the other things I wanted to highlight again on the endowment side, which we don't often focus on that much, but just as a reminder, the spending rule for the endowment has been very carefully designed and approved by the board. And my main message is we're taking a 28-quarter market value average when we're applying the spending rate for the endowment. And the reason that we do that is we want to make sure as much as possible that we can produce a slow and steady increasing endowment distribution year over year. So for example, when we had the bad year last year with COVID, that had nearly no impact on the endowment distribution. And likewise, even despite the great returns that we had this year, well, we don't want that to have a huge outlier impact on the distribution either, because we don't want the distributions to be going up and down. We want a nice, smooth, steady line because of all the important things that those distributions are supporting. So 1-year returns by asset sector, everything worked pretty well across the board for everyone, I mean, across markets. The only asset class that was slightly down was our U.S. Treasury portfolio, and that's just sort of understanding that interest rates rose during the year. We managed our exposures to avoid a further loss, but that was the one part of the portfolio that was down. The outstanding line would be private equity, which I'll mention again, Sarah Anderson has managed and really started that from scratch. We had a 62% return in private equity. A lot of that, or a lot of that additional return came from our venture capital portfolio. As you know that you're following the market, there were a lot of IPOs over the past year, which benefited some of the venture investments quite nicely. Just as an aside, we often have gotten over the years questions about private assets versus public assets. If we look back over the last 10 years, the private equity portfolio on an annualized basis has generated about a 15% return. Our actual public equity portfolio over the same time frame has generated a 10% return, which is consistent with market. So the point being that the private equity portfolio has generated an additional 500 basis points of return over a 10-year period, which is something we're pleased with. After private equity, actually the next best performing asset class was commodities, which is somewhat unique in our portfolio because of the diversification that we're after, followed by public equities. But really across the board, we had outstanding performance. We had really good active management, again, from our partners. Real estate, I'd point out, we were about 10% over benchmark. That had a lot to do with the mix in our portfolio. We were below target on areas of real estate that didn't do so well. We were above sort of overweight in areas that did do well. That's another area that Sarah manages, by the way, since she's here. But across the board, good results in both plans. This is just another way of looking at the return. So if you look at the retirement plan column, the retirement plan returned 28.7%. This is just saying that of that 28.7%, 13.8 came from private equity, or public equity, I'm sorry, 5.8 from private equity, et cetera. The Treasury portfolio, even though that had a slight loss, the impact on the total return was only 0.2%. So just to put that into perspective. So short-term returns are great. What about long-term returns? I'm happy to report here also that at 5, 7, and 10-year periods, we're at or above our policy benchmark across the board with both pools. The 10-year returns in 8% roughly in retirement plan, 8.5%, 8.6% in the endowment pool. One question one might ask is what drives the differences between the two over a 10-year period? It's the amount of risk that we've been willing to take. That's something that we're going to look at as we think about options with the retirement plan that we're working on for the board. But the main point here, over a long term, the returns have been good and they've been at or above our policy targets. Oh. Sorry about that. There we go. General pool. So you've already discussed the strategic dividend. I did want to highlight some of the details of the general pool to give some context. The general pool did return 7.7%, which at least over the last 20 years was a historic return. We've never been near that high. One of the things that we have to manage with the general pool, because it represents the university's liquidity, working capital, is that first line item, the liquidity portfolio. So 37% of the pool is essentially sitting in cash or cash equivalents, which earn 0.2%. So thinking about the returns of the general pool versus the endowment pool, the retirement plan, one of the biggest differentiators is that we maintain a significant amount of cash prudently to support the working capital needs of the university. The core portfolio, which is that second line item, that generated the bulk of the excess returns over the benchmark, almost 7% above the benchmark. That's entirely active management with our partners at PIMCO and DoubleLine. But overall, again, a great year. Ryan mentioned the dividend of 56.5 was historic since we've started this program. And that's great to be able to use this as truly a strategic resource of the university to generate important funding. So my last slide, I always like to give some retirement plan guidance, and again, we've never had a year quite like this. The pension plan from an actuarial standpoint has a September 30th fiscal year end, so it's different than the universities. But that's the cutoff date that's used to determine contribution requirements, et cetera. So the 10 months, so think of it as a pension year, 10 months into the pension year as of July 31st, the return of the retirement plan is almost 23%. I'd say we just closed out August yesterday. August will be at least 1%. I think it's going to be somewhere between 1 and 2%. So going then into the 11 months into the pension year, I think we're easily at a 24% return. Can't guarantee what the markets are going to do in September. Let's hope they hang in there. We don't have a market correction. But the point being, this gives us a lot of flexibility as we're considering some of the issues and funding challenges with the retirement plan. And again, we're working on lots of scenarios to bring back to the board, but this certainly puts us in a good position. With that, happy to take any questions on any of the things that we've covered.
Are there any questions from the committee and or the board?
Tom, on that last point, how has this affected, has this improved our position with the unfunded part of the retirement plan?
Yeah, absolutely. Those calculations are still being done by the actuary, but it's had obviously a very positive impact, which will help in solving some of the issues that we've been tackling.
That's good. Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Hearing none. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Moon, are you going to handle the naming opportunity? And Moon Choi, President Choi, would you please give us a presentation on the naming?
Thank you. Thank you, Curator Holbrook. It's truly an honor to present this very special recommendation, an honor that is bestowed upon an individual whose career has been dedicated to supporting breakthrough biomedical research and access to higher education. So it is my pleasure today to propose to the board naming of the Next Gen Precision Health Building in honor of U.S. Senator Roy Blunt. It's fitting that the boldest investment in our 182-year history should be named after a bold, courageous, and collaborative leader. During his 30-year career in public service, no one has done more to invest in NIH research and to expand the Pell Grants for deserving students to pursue higher education. For example, since 2015, Senator Blunt secured an increase of $13 billion to NIH, which is a 43% increase. In Missouri alone, NIH funding supported $1.6 billion in new economic activity and more than 9,000 high-paying jobs. Senator Blunt's leadership and support for higher education has increased opportunities for millions of students throughout the nation, and they include increasing the Pell Grants to help support students to graduate and graduate on time with less debt, increasing funding for first-generation college students by 22%, and starting the medical student program to address doctor shortages, especially in rural parts of the state like Missouri. In fact, the system received $25 million in support for both the MU and Umkc schools of medicine. Senator Blunt is a fifth-generation Missourian, and we're proud that he represents this great state. Naming the next-gen Precision Health Building is a fitting honor for this Missourian who has changed millions of lives through his leadership and advocacy. So thank you for your consideration.
Are there any questions of Dr. Choi? Any questions and/or comments? I only have one, and I think this is a great way to say thank you to a champion of our state and of our university. I've known Roy for a lot of years, had the opportunity to sit down with him numerous times and understand his dedication to the state and to this university. Are there any other questions or comments?
I would, excuse me, I would just offer as the University of Missouri system ushers in a new era in healthcare, Senator Blunt is not only a supporter, but an expert. He's long been a champion for mental health, accessibility of services, and medical research. I think this is completely appropriate, and I'm excited that we're doing this today.
Any other questions and comments from the board? Hearing none. May I have a motion and a second from the committee to approve the next Gen Precision Health Building be named in honor of the Honorable Roy Blunt in recognition of his commitment to the university's strategic priorities, higher education, and the state of Missouri?
Yeah, I'll move that the center be named after Senator Blunt. He's also someone I've known since I was a student at the University of Missouri and someone I admire, so I'm happy to move for that.
Is there a second?
I'd like to second that and echo the fine comments on the senator. Thank you.
Motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Are there any abstentions? The motion carries. Mr. Chairman, on behalf of the Finance Committee, we move to recommend to the full board that the next Gen Precision Health Building be named in honor of the Honorable Roy Blunt in recognition of his commitment to the university's strategic priorities and higher education in the state of Missouri be approved.
All right, thank you, Curator O'Brock. A motion has been made.
I'll second it.
Okay, and we have a second from Curator Winokur.
Can I encourage us to do this as a roll call vote?
Let's do it. Okay. So a motion has been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Okay, Cindy, please call the roll.
Curator Burnsick? Curator Chapman?
Yes.
Curator Graham?
Yes.
Curator Graves?
Yes.
Curator Hobrock?
Yes.
Curator Holloway?
Yes.
Curator Lehman?
Yes.
Curator Winokur?
Yes.
Curator Williams?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, you have all votes in favor.
Okay, the motion carries. So we are honored to be able to do this, and Senator Blunt, as everyone said here, I echo what all of our fellow curators have said. President Choi, do you have anything further to say, or will we call on Senator Blunt to make some comments?
I believe Senator Blunt is on standby. We're very excited, and we ask everyone to join us on October 19th at 10 a.m. for the grand opening of the Blunt Next Gen Roy Blunt Next Gen Precision Health Center. And I believe the senator's on standby. AV team? No. Yes or no? No. Okay, the senator's not on standby. He's probably taking an important vote on behalf of Missourians, so good for him, good for him.
All right. I will add that Dr. Francis Collins, Director of NIH, will join Senator Blunt at the Next Gen grand opening. It's very important.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I believe he's on now.
Okay.
Yes, Senator Blunt, are you able to join us? AV team? You lost him. Well, are you able to bring him back up?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Oh, yes, booming voice, we can hear you. Yes, Senator.
Well, I was able to listen to the recommendation from the Finance Committee and the vote of the full board. And just let me tell you how pleased I am to be associated with what can and will happen at this building. I think this future-focused, state-of-the-art facility has all the promise that I thought it had the first time President Choi mentioned it to me. I think it has the ability to really put the University of Missouri in the forefront of where medicine is going. One of the things that I've spent a lot of my time in the Senate is healthcare generally and healthcare research specifically, and the rapid change from where medicine was a decade ago to where it is right now is hard to really grasp. And I think that change accelerates, and it particularly accelerates in this whole area of personalized medicine, building on what we know about genetics, what we're learning about microbials, what can happen with CRISPR technology, things that are now baked into the system like immunotherapy. Were really a research project in one major institution just 7 years ago. And now it's on the checklist of so many cancers, and part of what happened in the development of the vaccine was different than any vaccine we'd ever developed, because it developed in a way where mRNA research allows the individual to look for markers that invade their system rather than giving the individual that particular disease, but telling the individual how to deal with that disease if they see it. I think the commitment of President Choi and of this board and its immediate predecessors. I know Marcy Graham's been very dedicated to this project, representing boards on both ends of the beginning, and now as we come to conclusion with the project. But I'm delighted to be associated with the building. I think great things are going to happen there. I think it has the real potential to further launch the University of Missouri at Columbia into a whole new level of healthcare research, building on the successes of the past. I look forward to continuing to be a partner in that, and I'm grateful that the board would associate me with what will happen and can happen at this facility. So thank you for this honor, and thank you for letting me join you for a few minutes this morning.
All right. Thank you, Senator. And we are. And thank you, Senator. We are honored to have you join us virtually this morning, and thank you for taking the time to do that. And we greatly appreciate all that you do for the university and this great state. Curator Holbrook, I'll turn it back over to you.
I would like to call on Chancellor Logani to make a presentation on the S&T Master Plan.
Leave now.
Thank you very much, and good morning, everyone. This is a great opportunity for me to appeal to all of you with regards to our master plan, and I ask that you consider our requests from multiple perspectives. One of our big challenges in Rolla, as you know, is the image, as was just depicted based on the questions on whether we need a parking garage or not. But that image exists. We have significant challenges in recruiting faculty members. We have significant challenges recruiting. I tell you, as you know, we've been fortunate to raise, our Comer endowment alone is north of $400 million. It was $410 million, and we've raised significant other monies for the Arrival District, for the manufacturing, and for, naming of the colleges and chairs, which is escalating as I speak with you. And we are pushing to have about $500 million of money that is going to have significant impact on the future of the university. So I ask that you please consider the presentation that I give you and the request that we have in light of the future where we want to go and how we want to change the campus and Rolla in particular, which is not there now. We have had multiple offers extended, and for one reason or another, spouses don't want to be there, and the candidates themselves have difficulty coming to Rolla. So consider all aspects of our request, and recognize that if we are to get to go where we want to go with our North Star goals, which I show you quickly, we need to become a destination of choice rather than the questioning of, do you want to be here? I tell you, we just lost a physician who was here for 9 months and then decided that his wife didn't want to be there. So all of these considerations go into what our present needs are, what our future needs are, and much more importantly, how do we make Rolla a destination so people would want to be there and contribute to our plans. I don't want, frankly, one element of the plan, whether it's a subsurface parking garage, sort of be the focal point of these discussions. Keep in mind, 30 years, 40 years, 50 years from today, where Rolla needs to be. As you know, we just celebrated our Cisco centennial anniversary, and the big challenge for us is make sure that Rolla will remain a crown jewel of American engineering education for the next 50, 100, 150 years to come. So please keep all of that in mind when we go through the actual plans. So this shows you a timeline of where we started I'll call it the modern version of our campus plan. We started it in October of 2019. We looked at everything that we have comprehensively, and the main element for us was delineate necessary and desirable. Every infrastructure project that we have, what is absolutely necessary and what is it that is nice to have? And we've been delineating those two, and what we show you is it ranges from desirable to necessary. So we started in October 2019. We conducted many surveys, and I'll show you some of that. But one of the strategic consideration for the plan was our North Star goals. Recruitment and retention, we are a campus of 8,000, now 7,700 or so. At some point, we were a campus of 9,000. What we want to be is a campus of 12,000, 8,000 undergraduate and 4,000 graduate, and that is very much possible. Then research, innovation, entrepreneurship, thinking, we want to go from R2 research to R1. This is Carnegie category R1. There are 134 universities in R1 category, and we must be that if we want to remain relevant in the world of research and innovation. And then ranking and recognition, our desire is to get to top 100 universities, and we have many, many long-term plans. Remember, all of these are horizon goals. You cannot get there in a year or two. You got to continue working on the elements of it so you will get there. So these are our strategic priorities. With that in mind, we conducted many, many surveys. As you see, this is the list of the questions and surveys and asks that we did. I believe this took place in a 2-week period in December of 2019. And we came up with the results that I'm going to show you. So the main drivers are either programmatic drivers or physical drivers, as you see them listed there. Programmatic, I'll say, for example, within the Comer plan, we are to recruit 20 endowed chairs and professors. That's a significant number of high caliber faculty recruitment. In 5-year period, we must hire 100 new faculty members. We have endowment money for 100 doctoral fellows, fully paid. These are Comer doctoral fellows, I&E fellows. So when I say programmatic needs, we need research facilities for the faculty, for the endowed chairs and professors and doctoral students. We have 500 Comer Vanguard undergraduate scholars. Just last week, I stood in front of 460 that we were able to recruit to campus this past semester. So there are programmatic needs of that nature that we cannot hire these faculty and not have the modern needed facilities for them to conduct their research. And then there are the physical drivers, facility conditions. Our campus is old. We are very, very happy with how our arrival district is progressing. As you know, we had a separate campaign for our arrival district, and the very first phase of it was completed in 3 months and 10 days. We raised $18 million, which was our goal. The very next goal is the $9 million that we need for the subsurface parking garage, and we have good indications that we are going to get there with that as well. We have many, many activities ongoing, and it's sort of misleading to say, well, you have $500 million. But our ambitions are much bigger than that. We have a lot of activities. Our Missouri manufacturing ecosystem, which at some point I'm hoping to present to you, our arrival district, our new buildings that we must have, our renovations. So there is a lot of programmatic drivers and physical drivers for our needs. Then there is did it jump? Yeah. So we work with Facility Conditioning Need Index. As you're well aware, that's the cost of repairs over the actual value of a building. And we've categorized those into 4 categories where we are recommending replacement for some of our buildings, and we have buildings in that category. Poor condition, which means it needs total renovation. So the number that you see there, like 0.6, that means it'll cost more than 60% of the present value of that building to renovate it. So when it gets to that point, we must completely, we recommend replacing the building. And for example, the very first building that you see there, I believe FCNI for that building is over 80. So it's 0.8 plus. Then there are facilities between 0.5 and 0.31 that you see. and those needs major renovation. And then there are other facilities that are below 0.31. We are actually in very good shape, and that our numbers, our overall campus FCI number is going to improve because we are about to demolish 10 of the oldest buildings for the arrival district. So that immediately improves our facility conditioning index. But based on that, I just wanted for you to see that it's not only the new buildings that we are asking, we are considering every other element of renovation and replacement and all of that. So it is really a graded approach when it comes to addressing the needs of our campus. So the planning principles are these, as you see, and I highlighted to you. We want to make the campus an interesting, nice place. Our campus, as it is, I'm sure those of you who've seen, you never know when you are on campus. You can come from north, from south, from east, from west, and you really don't know where is the front of the campus? Where is the front door? Where is the gate? We don't have that. So what the planning that we have addresses a lot of those needs, and as I said, eye to the future, where we want to be. Let me show you this map, which is sort of categorized in 4 or 5 areas. I am going to focus mainly on the academic, on research and development, as well as on the sort of the blue part, the upper left-hand side, the R&D part, and then the residential. So within the academic, if you look at it, this is the academic region. You'll see the arrival district and the 2 immediate buildings that we are very much hopeful to build. You see that circle in the middle of up and down road, that's Bishop Road, that rotary that's on the road, that doesn't exist now. And the 4-lane boulevard that you see with that building number 9, the number is 11 in that circle. That is being built as we speak. I mean, I think it was remarkable how fast that part of the project moved. We had to demolish about 20 homes that either us or the city owned. And now the road is emerging. I'll show you a picture of where that is. And then that road, which is going to be named after a donor, Tim Bradley Way, is going to come to that rotary on the Bishop Road. And then from there, what you see to the right of that rotary, there is nothing like that now. They're all old buildings, which was the back end of the campus. There is an old power plant building is there. No, that central green that you see does not exist now. And the parking that I'm talking about is going to go under that oval. The parking garage in the question is going to go under that oval. So notice that the Havner Center is the gray building attached, connected to building number 2, which is our Student Innovation Center. We are raising significant money for our Student Innovation Center. Building number 1 will be the Welcome Center. Building number 3 will be the BioX building. So that parking is going to be very central to the main part of the campus. So the image on the right is really the dirt pavement of the Tim Bradley Way. It'll bring you directly from I-44 onto the front of the campus. For the first time, when you drive to the campus, you know where the campus is. There actually be a front gate to the campus. As you know, we term this the arrival district. And the bridge that you see to the left is going to connect us from the main campus to the R&D campus. This is the manufacturing and innovation campus that at some point I'm hoping to present to you. Once we are done, the arrival district is going to resemble a front like this. And imagine if you are a candidate, whether for a faculty position or you are a potential student and you come to this image versus the images that we have right now, which hasn't changed in 70 years. It is the same. So now think of what I said. We want to get to 12,000 students. We have a lot of applicants that come in and just don't want to be in Rolla. Whether they're students, whether they're faculty, staff that we want to hire. And so this is a view of what we want to look like. Now, we have images of our own campus, rendering of them that I'll show you. So here's going to be the arrival district. This is the central green, and the parking garage is going to be right under the south side of this central green. The building immediately to your left is the Student Innovation Center. The one above it is the Welcome Center. And the building to the right is the BioX building that is going to be joined with our chemical and biochemical engineering building, which was, by the way, just recently endowed by one of our alums, Linda and Bipin Doshi, gave us $10 million to endow the chemical and biochemical engineering department. So this is the look that we are looking. Some of you may be familiar with our Rolla building, which is the building way on the top of the picture. Now, there will be a couple of promenades. One of them is going to be named after June Comer. June Comer Promenade, and she was an architect, she is an architect, and we are naming that promenade after her. This is another promenade. So if I go back to the previous image, you'll see the center, and to the left, between those two buildings on the left-hand side is what this promenade is going to look like. And then the building to the up left corner is the Havner Center. And Gary Havner gave us $6 million for the arrival, asking for a parking garage to be underneath the central green. So with that, I want to highlight some of the other needs. The Schrank Hall building number 13 that you see, the gray side is all renovated. The brown side is what we need to actually replace. That is the building with the facility conditioning index of 0.8 plus. These are future programs. We just wanted you to see the connectivity of the rest of the campus with the academic part and the part. This is the research and development. This is across the highway. That green bridge that I showed you is depicted here over the highway. And the future 25-year plan for the manufacturing and innovation campus is this, but our immediate need now is building number 1, which we are calling Missouri Protoplex, which is a 221,000 square facility. 50 million of Comer money has gone towards it. We have received 5 million from the state, and we are very much hopeful that we raise the rest of it. The total cost is 104 million. Now we have 67 Missouri companies that have expressed interest, and they're donating equipment for the manufacturing as a whole. But immediate need is this first building. Then after that are the 3 buildings right in the vicinity of building number 1, building 2, 3, and 4. Those are the other buildings. We term them 2 because we don't know which ones we are going to, raise money and build next. So with that, I just submit to you again that what we present to you, even the subsurface parking garage, is not, frankly, is not an aspirational, but it's a need for our campus. I'll be glad to respond to any
Are there
questions you
any
may have.
questions from the Finance Committee or the board? Mo, I just have one question. I don't know if it's really a question or not, but remind me again of the timeline and the proposals going forward for this plan. I mean, this is an ambitious plan, and I wholeheartedly support it. But how's this all going to tie in then with the capital plan you presented to us, that's been presented to us before? It looks to me like we're going to have to make some major changes to that.
Well, you know, the arrival district, we are doing it as we speak. I mean, we are in the month of September, we are going to demolish 3 buildings, and in the month of October, we are demolishing another 3 buildings. So we are moving forward with the arrival district. But the capital plan that we had, we are putting $6.5 million towards the student innovation building, that building number 1 on the previous slides. And we are getting half of that money from Comer as well. So we are not changing that. Everything else, there are many other building projects that Comer is paying for it, like the engineering extension laboratory, that we are moving forward with all of those. But with the manufacturing building and the welcome center, those are the ones that are on hold, and we may have to change, you know, things around before we get to them.
Okay. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Just a comment. I do want to share that I had a chance to discuss the master plan with Chancellor Degani and EVP Rapp, and I do appreciate his big, bold vision that was much needed at Rolla. There's been a lot of incrementalism at Rolla, and with Chancellor Degani's leadership, he's really envisioning Rolla for the next 25 to 50 years. And a lot of work went into this, so I appreciate your leadership and continued support for the master plan.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Any other comments?
I have one.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's something we talk about, how much our universities impact our community, but I think your presentation really speaks to that. I think each of you do that really effectively. Talk about the city of Rolla in your county and their engagement with this planning process and their reaction to it, if you would.
They are very much on board with us. You know, our campus and our city are one. You know, we are so small that I invite the mayor. Mayor is a good friend, and he comes to every one of our meetings that we invite him, and I participate in the city planning discussions, the county, discussions, the transportation department participation. So much so that, you know, the part of the Tim Bradley way that you saw, the city of Rolla put in $6.5 million on that project. So we are very much engaged. We have multiple other projects that I don't have time to highlight here, but they invite us, and we go in there with the needs of the university, and they come to us with the needs of the city. I mean, we are, between us, the school district, the Phelps Health, the Economic Development Board, the Chamber of Commerce, all of our meetings are fully integrated. The mayor wanted me to go and give this very presentation, a lot more detail, when they were diverting $6.5 million into that project. So there is a lot of interactions, communications, collaborations between us and the city. And as I said, you know, if we want to elevate Missouri S&T, we have to contribute to elevating the city of Rolla as a whole.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments for?
Well, I want to add, I really appreciate your vision and the effort and the results you're doing. Moon said this, but, you know, you think big, you're putting together a plan, and I'll tell you, I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mo, you know, I have a son that graduated from Rolla. Been on the campus many times. You know, the underground parking facility seems a bit odd to me until I see your plan. Then it becomes sensible to fulfill your plans that you have. And they are bold plans, and I think it's great. And then the other point I'll make, besides thanking you for your time, is that when you have a city the size of Rolla, that makes a $6.5 million commitment, okay, to rearrange their roads so we can have a proper entrance to our university down there. That's a significant gift and a significant commitment from a smaller city like Rolla.
Absolutely. And
So-
we're grateful. And they just let us know they're putting two additional $1 million on another road on the other side of the campus, the Pine Street. So some of you may be familiar with it. So they're committed to the plan, and we are committed to the city as well.
Are there any other questions or comments? Hearing none. May I have a motion and a second from the committee to approve the 2020 University of Missouri Science and Technology Campus Master Plan as presented to you and outlined in the materials for this meeting?
So moved.
I'll second that.
Motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Are there any abstentions? The motion passes. Mr. Chairman, on behalf of the Finance Committee, we move to recommend to the full board the 2020 University of Missouri of Science and Technology Master Plan as presented to you and outlined in the materials in this meeting be approved.
Okay, we
An
have a,
enthusiastic second.
all right. Thank you, Curator Graham. We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed say nay. Do we have any abstentions? Okay, the motion passes.
Thank you all.
All right. Curator Holbrook, I'll turn it back over to
Curator
you.
Chapman, that concludes the business of the Finance Committee.
Thank you, Curator Holbrook. So we appreciate everyone's flexibility as we move the schedule around a little bit this morning. So we'll jump back to our informational items. And we'll jump back to that under general business, and I'll start with the chair's report, okay? So are you, Cindy, are they going to load those slides for the chair's report? Okay, great. All right, thank you, Chancellor Agrawal, Chief Baumgartz, and the Umkc team for their hospitality today here on campus. I really look forward to meeting with faculty and student leaders during lunch today. I'm sure all of us curators do. To start off my chair report, I'd like to recognize two faculty members from UMKC who have recently been designated as Curators Distinguished Professors. Any faculty member nominated for this appointment is expected to be an outstanding scholar with an established reputation for research or teaching. These individuals I will share this morning demonstrate the essence of what it means to be a Curator's Distinguished Professor. First is Dr. Sarah Dallas, the Lee M. and William Lefkowitz Endowed Professor at the UMKC School of Dentistry, Department of Oral and Craniofacial Sciences. I hope I pronounced that right. Dr. Dallas completed her undergraduate training at the University of Birmingham in the UK, and her PhD training at the Royal Veterinary College, University of London, also in the UK. Dr. Dallas has been continually funded by NIH since 2001. Her research has focused on the role of the extracellular matrix in regulating growth factor actions and the dynamic mechanisms by which bone extracellular matrix is assembled. She is the director of the confocal microscopy core at UMKC. Her work is nationally and internationally recognized, and she has helped launch the careers of a number of trainees, several of whom have received Young Investigator Awards under her mentorship. Congratulations, Dr. Dallas, for your accomplishments and successful academic career. Next up is Dr. Lowell Powell. Dr. Powell is a professor of film studies at the Department of Foreign Languages and Literatures. He earned his PhD in German from Columbia University in 1999 and later taught briefly at Fordham University, UMass Amherst, and Texas A&M before his arrival at the University of Missouri, Kansas City. We're grateful to have you here. He is the author of 3 acclaimed monographs, co-editor of 4 books and journal issues, and has written over 50 articles and book chapters. He presents at the most prestigious conferences and has an international reputation, being invited often to Central and Eastern Europe, the UK, India, Africa, and Asia to present his research. At every board meeting this year, I have thoroughly enjoyed recognizing faculty and their achievements. The value and impact of their work has a much further reach than just our university borders. Our researchers have a direct and positive impact on our students and their success, which supports one of our unifying principles, research excellence. So I'm excited today to continue sharing remarkable examples of researchers from each university who are pushing the envelope and making a difference each and every day. From here at Umkc, we have Drs. George Gatto and Michelle Reynolds. Dr. George Gatto is an associate research professor in the Department of Biomedical and Health Informatics with the Umkc School of Medicine. He is trained as a medical anthropologist with an emphasis in cross-cultural perspectives on health and disability. Dr. Gatto is the director of the Umkc Institute for Human Development. Dr. Michelle Reynolds serves as the Senior Associate Director at the Umkc Institute for Human Development, where she has worked for over 24 years. She is the key developer for the charting of life course framework and tools that are being utilized across the country. Dr. Reynolds served on the President's Committee for People with Intellectual Disabilities and as the co-director of the National Community of Practice for Supporting Families of Individuals with Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities. Together, Drs. Gatto and Reynolds lead the Umkc Institute for Human Development, which is an applied research and training center for human services and serves as a bridge between the university and the community. This is very important work. Umkc IHD has 59 actively funded grants from 27 sources for a total of $6.1 million. Very impressive. From Missouri S&T, I want to recognize Dr. Chang Lin Wu, another NSF Career Award recipient. Dr. Chang Lin Wu is an assistant professor of structural engineering at Missouri S&T. Dr. Wu earned a PhD in civil engineering from Missouri S&T in 2014 and a PhD in engineering mechanics from the University of Texas at Austin in 2016. His work focuses on two-dimensional metals, metals that are 3 atoms thick for use in computer chips, sensors, and coatings. I had to think about that one a few times. Okay, from Umsl, we have Mrs. Ellison and Dr. Elizabeth Sale. Katie Ellison. Katie Ellison works with the Missouri Institute of Mental Health and specializes in suicide prevention, intervention, and postvention. Ms. Ellison received a master's degree in psychology from the University of the Rockies in 2013 and a master's in professional school counseling from Bradley University in 2020. She has 20 years of professional experience in youth corrections, adult and juvenile probation, K-12 public education, and suicide prevention program implementation in the states of Utah, Wyoming, South Dakota, and Missouri. Dr. Elizabeth Sale is the Evaluation Director and Research Associate Professor at the MIMH. Dr. Sale earned her PhD in Public Policy from Umsl. She has over 25 years of experience in the field of survey and evaluation research, with specific expertise in conducting process and outcome evaluations in the field of child and adolescent mental health and substance abuse prevention. Ms. Ellison is the project director for the Gun Suicide Prevention Planning Project, and Dr. Sale is the primary investigator. This project aims to build a suicide prevention coalition in Southeast Missouri to focus on mental health and suicide. And from Mizzou, we have 2 recent NSF career awardees, Dr. Hussein Nassar and Dr. Zhang Yan. Dr. Hussein Nassar is an assistant professor in the Department of Mechanical and Aerospace Engineering. He studied math and mechanics and earned his PhD in Paris, France, before joining MU. His research focuses on the connections between elasticity and geometry, structures and mechanisms in solid mechanics, and on related applications in the design and modeling of lattices and architected materials. His research is funded by the NSF Career Award. And Dr. Zheng Yan is an assistant professor in the Department of Biomedical, Biological, and Chemical Engineering and Department of Mechanical and Aerospace Engineering at the University of Missouri-Columbia. He received his PhD from Rice University in 2013 and did postdoc training at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign before joining the faculty at the University of Missouri. His current research focuses on fundamental materials, devices, and manufacturing innovations of soft electronics for health and robotics. Dr. Yan is a recipient of the NSF Career Award and the System President's Award for Early Career Excellence. This handful of examples continues to show the depth and breadth of the research and creative works being done at our universities. Our research mission is critical to what we achieve as a university system and a strong example of how we best serve the citizens of the great state of Missouri. Thanks to all of our researchers making an impact each and every day. With that, I'll conclude my report so we can jump into the business of the meeting. Okay, we'll move on to the President's report. President Choi, I turn it over to you for your report.
Thank you. Thank you, Curator Chapman, and it's my pleasure to provide an update to the board about the important developments throughout the four universities that make up the system. First of all, it was so wonderful to see students here at Umkc and at Mizzou, and I plan to make visits to Rolla and St. Louis. But it reminded all of us that work at the university, why what we do is so important, providing the opportunity for students to continue with their education, and the students want in-person learning. And our faculty members to continue their research and scholarship and teaching. And so it was wonderful to see the students, and we look forward to continuing with the in-person operation through careful management during the COVID period. So let me also share the very innovative and dedicated faculty members here at Umkc, and these are the Umkc Presidential Awardees. I'm not going to go through in detail, but you can see the names as well as the specialty areas for which they were recognized. And we're very proud of them because they bring more collaboration and partnerships throughout the state of Missouri. And on this slide, I'm also not going to go through individual, but to give you a sense of the quality of faculty members that we are hiring at all four universities. It will denote the names, where they received their PhD, and if they are coming in as associate or full professors, the prior institutions in which they served as faculty members. Let me go to the next slide, give you a chance to see. And here at Mizzou, or in Columbia, we have faculty members who are joining a diverse group of departments, all with the aim of advancing research excellence and student success. Those that you see on the tan background are those individuals that will be joining us during the academic year. Some of these hires are very recent hires. As you can see in the bottom, there are radiology hires that we were able to attract through Rick Barron's leadership, as well as Tally Altus, two important leaders in the School of Medicine, for our next-gen precision health Siemens Health and Years partnership, in which we have the most advanced MRI instrumentation for research and clinical applications. And it's investments like that that are attracting faculty members from Yale University, Johns Hopkins, Mayo Clinic to come to the University of Missouri. At Umkc, as you can see from this list, there are a number of faculty members who are world-class performers, world-class instructors in music theory and drama that support the conservatory. And we're excited that they can join us, and they enliven not only the classroom, but our community through their efforts. We had 4 new faculty members join Missouri S&T, and Professor Head and Colin Potts are from Georgia Tech. Colin Potts serves as the provost, and Chancellor Degani was able to attract Professor Potts from Georgia Tech to become the provost at the Missouri University of Science and Technology. And there have been 3 new hires at Umsl, and one of those hires is a familiar face, Professor Rachel Winograd, who's been converted from a research professor to a tenure-track faculty member. And she is one of the nation's leading experts on opioid addiction prevention and education. Special recognition for Professor Audra Murfeld-Langston, and she just recently received a very special recognition from the French government. And Chevalier in French means knight, and so she's been knighted with the most important non-military award from the French government, and this was an award established by Napoleon in the early 1800s, and we're proud of her research, outreach, and her outstanding contributions have been recognized by the French government. So let me move into student success. These are the numbers that show the application of freshmen and freshmen that have accepted with deposit at all 4 universities. It was a challenging year where many students were not able to take the ACT or SAT, and many schools did not allow our faculty and enrollment counselors to visit, to talk about the important things that we do at this university. But despite that, we did well. Throughout the United States, we hear of stories of dramatic double-digit declines in freshman enrollment, but we were able to hold strong. In addition to that, despite the number of students who graduate from community colleges here in the state has been reduced significantly, we also did very well when it comes to transfer students. Students and their parents recognize the value that they receive, the value of the education that they receive at the state's only public research universities. And they also appreciate the fact that we have that strong commitment to continue with in-person learning throughout the year. Sure. Mm-hmm.
When you look at our conversion ratio, those accepted versus applicants, how do we trend compared to other similar type institutions for each campus or each institution?
So the question, Curator Wennick, that you're asking, let's take Mizzou, for example. In 2021, 19,977 students were applied, right, and those that actually came in with the deposit was 5,147. That's about what is expected, about 25%. But we do have a very high acceptance ratio. Okay. And it's important for us to serve the needs of Missourians, but some of our universities have plans to increase our selectivity. You may recall Missouri S&T became one of 2 highly selective universities, along with Truman State. Mizzou is very close. We are selective, but we are very close to getting to the highly selective level.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you. This shows the overall full-time enrollment at the university. And as you can see from this list, we are growing the number of students that we have at the university. Other than Missouri S&T has seen a slight decline. Part of the reason is they do a great job of graduating students. And so it's a combination of more students wanting to come to the university combined with the throughput, the graduation of our students. Student success. Isn't this the most important thing that we do at a university? And Each of those students that are listed here, including those who are graduate students and undergraduate students at our university, are making a distinction or bringing distinction to our institutions through their efforts, whether it's receiving graduate fellowships or very special assignments in the federal government. They are gaining that important experience that will become so critical in their development as leaders. Research and creative works. I'll start with this slide here. I apologize that the numbers are a little hard to read. They're a little small, but the trends are impressive. If you look across the system, you could see the proposals, the federal proposal increases from 2017 to 2021 has been very dramatic. And we see the increases at Mizzou, increases at Umsl from 2019 on, and for S&T and Umkc as well. But this is something that we need to continue. There's nothing more important as a leading indicator than research proposals that are submitted. The other very important leading indicator is the awards. Awards are received after the proposals are scored and funded. And you can see here as well some dramatic increases in our performance. But the most important measurable that we have for measuring research performance is in the expenditures. And the fact that the proposals and the awards are showing significant increases portend very good things for all 4 universities when it comes to the expenditures. So we do expect continued growth in this area. And at board meetings, I do identify research grants that are over $1 million, and the 2 that I want to discuss is from Mizzou, and one is from our recently appointed Vice Chancellor for Research, Dr. Tom Spencer, who is an expert on reproductive science, and he has received significant amount of funds, not only from NIH, but from Department of Agriculture, and he is an expert in comparative medicine. And so we also appreciate greatly his efforts in leading the overall research activities at Mizzou. The other major award is for Dr. Haval Sharwan, as well as the co-PI, Dr. Esma Yoku. We attracted both of these individuals from University of Louisville, and they brought with them significant amount of research funds from NIH, but also they were able to submit proposals that scored very well, in this case funded. And so it's very important for us to continue to attract the very best to our 4 universities, but also at the same time setting high expectations for the faculty members that are here to produce research results. But we can only do that by providing the faculty members with the tools and resources needed so that they can compete nationally for NSF, NIH, and other sources of funding. Next Gen update, I know that Dr. Barron will have additional details as part of the Health Affairs Committee meeting, but on August 4th, we had a chance to view the installation of that 25-ton magnet that you see on the truck bed. That is the largest, most powerful MRI magnet in the state of Missouri and most likely in the Midwest. And that will enable the most minute changes in blood flow in brains and other parts of the human body to detect very high signal-to-noise ratio to ascertain brain activity, as well as better understanding the physiology of human beings. And we're very excited about that investment. Let me end with philanthropy. And philanthropy has to become a much more important part of our efforts to generate new revenues for the university. And as you can see, Mizzou, after the end of the $1.4 billion capital campaign, there has been some drop-off. There are also some impact because of COVID, not being able to see donors. But it's very important for us to now reverse the trend at Mizzou. And with Jackie Lewis as Vice Chancellor, I believe that we will have a very strong opportunity for the next capital campaign that will bring in significant investments to support research as well as student success and engagement. And what can I say about Missouri S&T? The largest gift for an academic institution in the state of Missouri by far. And it took a lot of effort, a lot of travels on I-44 for Chancellor Degani, but I know that we all appreciate that effort. So with that, let me end my remarks and ask if the board has any questions or input.
Thank you, President Choi. Any questions from curators? All right. Well, great report. Thanks again for all the work you do for us, Dr. Choi. All right, we will move on to our student representative, Williams, for his report.
Thank you, Chairman Chapman and President Choi. Great to be here at UMKC this morning. So first slide, please. So across the system, our intercampus student council is working to find ways to be more effective in our meetings and find ways to come together, maybe personally and in hybrid ways, to kind of address issues that come kind of rarely, but when they do come up, they're important, that affect students across the entire system. So whether it be new CRRs that might impact students across the system, or language in old ones, or things like digital accessibility, especially as we go more into the e-learning and also coming back into the classroom. How do we utilize tools that we've maybe learned through Zoom and through hybrid sessions that we can help make sure all students, have the ability to learn and grow. Next slide, please. So here at UMKC and really across the system, the goal is for us to be able to give our students the tools they need to succeed. So make sure that they can show up in the classroom, ready to go, show up on the field or on the court, ready to go, trying to eliminate external forces that may impact their academic journey in a negative way. So here at UMKC, I touched on this briefly in my first ever presentation in this role, but the Kangaroo Pantry has seen an increased need, but also increased hands-on deck kind of outlook from the community. So just in the last year alone, they've over doubled in the poundage of food that they've not only brought in, but also given away to students in need and students' families that might not know where their next meal or their hygiene products are coming from. So that's an example of a great tangible kind of solution that we've taken on this campus, and that I know the other campuses through the Tiger Pantry in Columbia and similar programs are taking across the system. And also, President Choi touched on it earlier, students want to be back in person, and they want kind of the traditional transition. So the last month, the last 3 weeks, the last several months for our administrators has been really kind of fast-paced. How can we make sure it's safe and effective, but give the students that traditional transition that they need to make sure that we can retain them and they have the experience that they expect and want to keep coming back and become a friendly alumni of the system. So there's a picture from some convocation games a couple weeks ago at UMKC, and we had Rue Welcome and Tiger Welcome in Columbia as well. And then at Umsl, students are really taking advantage of every opportunity. So President Choi briefly mentioned Ayumide in his report there on the right, but she was one of the 5 inaugural recipients of the Loretta Ford inaugural Centennial Scholarship, which is given out through the American Association of Nurses partnership. And she's finishing up her DNP program now. She already has a degree from Umsl in 2017, so she's really taken full advantage of everything Umsl has to offer. And she said she was so thrilled when she got the email. She read it over 13,000 times. Go to law school here. I didn't call her on that, but we'll take her word. So she was quite excited. And then on the right, or on the left, I'm sorry, we have Cindy Orff, who began her education career over 20 years ago, actually in Columbia, so at Mizzou. But now she's came back, had a career at Boeing for the last 20 years, and she said she's always had kind of one roadblock in her way of really achieving her goals, and that was a degree. So I think it really shows how across the system we really have, the whole spectrum covered of whether you start at Columbia and then find a career and begin it, and then 20 years later, you want to set an example for her children. She says that's her biggest motivation, to be able to look back and say, I did it. If I can do it, you can do it. And if you can do it, your friends can do it, and those around you can do it. So she's involved in the organizational leadership program at Umsl, which is all online, so she's able to continue her career at Boeing. She's actually secured a promotion through Boeing for when she's completed, and is really setting that example for not only her kids, but her entire community. Next slide, please. So at Mizzou, like I mentioned, piggybacking off President Choi, on the left, you have some welcome leaders at Mizzou. Everything is in full swing, and it's been great to even see some of the students last year that unfortunately weren't able to have that, your traditional Tiger welcome, being able to participate in some of the traditions. So we had a Tiger walk for incoming freshmen, and then we had a Tiger walk for sophomores that maybe didn't get the full experience last year. So try to kind of make sure everyone gets caught up, whether it be through your first roar at Farrow Field or other things like that. We're making sure everybody is safely getting back in an effective manner. And then on the right, and then on the right is one of my favorite kind of bicentennial celebration things for the state that students are involved in. It's called Missouri on Mic. So several journalism students. It's actually produced by a journalism student. All the associate producers are journalism students at Mizzou, and they're traveling around the state at different events, whether it be the fair or events in Columbia or different cities, and recording Missourian citizens of our state, what they think of when they think of Missouri, what they hope for the future of Missouri, what's the bicentennial mean for Missouri. So it's a great way that our students and our system have been able to work with the State Historical Society, the state as a whole, and really get into the community, learn tangible skills for their journalism careers, but also give back to the state in a meaningful way. And then finally, at S&T, Chancellor Moe touched on it earlier, but we have almost 500 Cummer Vanguard scholars that have just came to campus, and as we reach for that goal or the Northern Star of 12,000 students, making sure we're able to keep those students retained, but also grow the program is instrumental. So they've really enjoyed their first couple weeks on campus. Just this week, we had Minor Rama in Rolla, their big student involvement fair, which over 250 student organizations and community members were able to come to campus, all set up throughout campus, the band did a performance, stuff like that, and students love it every year. So it was great to see that kind of transition from last year. Was the first year it was mainly outside, and this year they kept it outside. So it was a great success that hopefully continues on in the future. And then finally, President Choi touched on David Lund's research at S&T. He's a third-year PhD student. He received a grant from NASA, which will allow him to, in the summers, intern at NASA with his NASA mentor, but also his research with lunar dust and solar rays is actually going to help the crew members on the first NASA mission that'll put men on the moon in nearly 50 years. So it's a great example. Senator Blunt mentioned earlier how research in Missouri impacts Missouri, but it far outreaches our state and our system. So it's a great example of how a student at S&T can impact S&T, that can impact our system, our state, and then much, much further and beyond than that. So that's what I have. I'll open it up to any questions.
All right, thank you, Student Representative Williams. Excellent report. Any questions from the curators?
Great report.
All right. Hearing no further questions, we will move on in the agenda. Our next item of business is to approve the new board, executive committee, and standing committee appointments for the year. May I have a motion and a second from the board to approve these appointments?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Do we have any abstentions? Okay, the motion carries. Next, we have the consent agenda. Are there any questions from the board regarding the consent agenda items as shown in your materials? Okay, hearing none, may I have a motion and a second from the board to approve the consent agenda as presented in your materials?
So moved. Second.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Okay, do we have any abstentions?
Mr. Chairman, I need to abstain due to the investment. A couple of those are related to investments.
Okay, Curator Lehman will be abstaining. Okay, the motion carries. All right. So, moving around in our agenda, since we already did the Finance Committee meeting, Curator Lehman, I now turn it over to you for the Audit, Compliance, and Ethics Committee meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Audit Compliance Ethics Committee has one information item today. Chief Audit and Compliance Officer Michelle Peranio will present one item, the Audit Compliance and Ethics Quarterly Report. Michelle will review for the past quarter and be available for questions. Michelle?
Thank you, Curator Lehman. And I just have to say it's great to be back at UMKC. Currently on our rolling audit plan, we have 27 audits and consulting engagements, and this plan was approved at the June board meeting. One audit we are finalizing with management, and 3 audits and 1 consulting engagement are in process. And I'll just talk a little bit about the consulting engagement. It is the development of an awards grant management monitoring tool so that ethics, compliance, and audit services can scan for areas of potential concern for further evaluation. Our goal is to really increase our coverage by focusing on areas that present a reason for possible concern as opposed to randomly sampling. So with this approach, we can take a deeper dive into those areas and generate the evidence to provide assurance that there are no issues or identify the issues that need to be resolved. And this is important to us because research is one of our strategic objectives for the system, and we want to support this through periodic internal audits and continuous monitoring. As a system-wide compliance function, we are staying connected to the research compliance efforts at NextGen and for all 4 universities so we can supplement efforts and provide oversight and ensure we are doing all that we can to mitigate our highest risk areas that could adversely impact our ability to apply for and receive grants and our reputation as we work hard in establishing the university as a premier research organization. So we conduct follow-up procedures twice a year to verify that the status of management action plans for previously issued audits were implemented. And for this period, there were 12 action items that were due, spread across 4 audits. And 4 of the 12 action items were completed, and 7 management action items in 2 audits were assigned extended due dates. 5 of the extended action items relate to the Umsl lab safety audit, which was a low-risk audit. And the ability to complete these items was impacted by the pandemic and public health restrictions, basically being able to get on campus to implement the needed changes. So most campus operations and activities are returning to near normal, and we anticipate, as does the Umsl leadership over these items, that these will be completed by the end of this year, this calendar year. The other 2 extended action items are related to the MU conflict of interest and commitment process. Oversight management plans are how conflicts are managed once they are identified, and these are the responsibility of the deans and department chairs where the conflict is identified. So the backlog, as we did our follow-up, the backlog of conflicts without management oversight plans in place has been reduced. This is a real positive since we performed the audit. But what is still a work in process is solidifying reporting back to the Conflict of Interest Committee when oversight management plan reviews aren't completed, so that the committee can put into action the steps necessary to hold the deans and department chairs accountable for missed reviews. So now I would like to give you an update on the implementation of our system-wide compliance program. An executive order has been drafted to formally establish the compliance program, and this addresses the purpose, scope, and resources and delegation of authority. And also, as part of that, a draft charter to establish a System Audit and Compliance Committee has been developed. And members of this committee will provide guidance and support to myself and the other leaders in my area. And the primary responsibilities of the members will include the support of ethics, compliance, and audit services work and initiatives, assisting in resolving organization-specific risk, internal control or regulatory compliance concerns, and modeling a culture of caring, integrity, and accountability. So the next steps are with me. I will be seeking input from President Choi, the chancellors, and Curator Lehman before these documents receive final approval. And now I would like to just give an update on the implementation of our Code of Conduct. The Code of Conduct is on target for introduction and rollout at each university beginning in October. This is a foundational piece in an effective compliance program as it establishes and communicates our expectations about how we interact with one another, how we conduct business, and it's also an easy-to-understand resource for our regulatory and compliance obligations. I can't overemphasize the importance of this initiative in helping to establish and maintain the type of culture that we want at all of our universities. And so the rollout is being coordinated with marketing and communications, and we will have an introductory video featuring the leadership. Board training is also under development, as well as some creative ideas for continuing to build the awareness and importance of the code over the next year. All of this could not have been achieved without the hard work of all our subject matter experts across all 4 campuses, each of the marketing and communications team, and the human resources teams. All of these people and teams will continue to be very important and strong partners with ethics, compliance, and audit services in ensuring the consistent actions and messages needed to reinforce the culture of caring, integrity, and accountability that we all deserve as we strive to be and do our best for our students, our patients, and our citizens of Missouri. So with that, this is just a preview of the covers of each of the codes. The whole purpose was to have one code, but have a design that's unique to each university and respects their different branding and imaging as well. And with that, I will open it to any questions.
Do we have any questions for Michelle, from the committee or the full board? Thank you, Michelle, as always. Excellent job. This concludes the Audit, Compliance, and Ethics Committee business for this meeting. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Curator Lehman. We will now move on, Curator Winokur. We'll turn it over to you for the Health Affairs Committee Chair Report.
Great, thank you. The Health Affairs Committee met on August 26th. We had 5 information items and 2 action items. MU Health Executive Vice Chancellor Dr. Rick Barron will present a summary of the presentations for us this morning. And from these reports, you will see the continued accomplishments and opportunities for MU Healthcare, the School of Medicine, and NextGen. Dr. Barron.
Thank you, Curator Winokur, and all the curators. Thanks for this opportunity to share updates with you today. And I have to say, it's also a personal thrill to be presenting this report on the campus where I received my bachelor's in medical degree and where I lived as a freshman in what used to be called the Cherry Street Dorm, just north of here. So I'll be sharing with you some exciting news regarding NextGen Precision Health Initiative and an update on other important activities at MU Healthcare and the School of Medicine. Plus, of course, I'm eager to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, no problem.
So I'm excited to show this recent photograph of the Roy Blunt NextGen Precision Health building. The building is nearly complete. both inside and out, benchtop as well as shared laboratory equipment is being installed, and it's moving towards being fully ready for our scientists next month. And as Dr. Choi already alluded to, August 4th was a very big day for Next Gen. The Siemens 7T MRI was installed, and this allowed President Choi and other Next Gen leaders to join our Whiting-Turner partners for this photograph. The equipment is the most powerful research MRI in the region. The only one of its kind in Missouri. I've mentioned before, WashU doesn't have one, and we're excited for our scientists from St. Louis, Kansas City, and around the region to be using this amazing piece of equipment. The power of the 7T allows researchers and clinicians to see organs in an extraordinary level of detail, and this is really what precision imaging and precision health is all about. The Next Gen grand opening is October 19th, and as you can see in this slide, we have some great activities leading up to the grand opening. There will be an open house with tours through the building beginning Friday, October 15th. On Saturday, there's the big Texas A&M football game. Sunday, our Siemens Health and Ears Leadership Group will meet for dinner, and on Monday, our Next Gen Precision Health Advisory Board meets, and then finally, on October 19th is the big event we've all been waiting for. Some of these images were shown in President Choi's slide deck, but this is really a picture of the amazing researchers that have been attracted to come to University of Missouri because of the Next Gen imaging equipment that we are putting in place. Dr. Tally Altus is the chair of radiology, and she really led the recruitment of these 5 individuals. Of the 5 recruits in this picture, 3 are full professors that bring NIH funding with them, and 2 are assistant professors at the beginning of their academic careers. Some are already on campus, and the others are arriving in the next couple of months. You will also notice that almost all of them have dual appointments in another college at MU, and so they'll really be able to increase the breadth and depth of Next Gen team science. As a sign of our continuing growth, in addition to those Next Gen hires, Dean Zweig recently appointed 2 individuals to chair positions in the School of Medicine. First, Steve Barnes, who had been serving as the interim chair of surgery, has agreed to become the chair. And as many of you know, he has been one of the critical leaders of our COVID incident and command program. Additionally, we just recently successfully recruited Dr. Jean Goodman from Loyola in Chicago to be the next chair of OBGYN and Women's Health. And she's a maternal fetal specialist, and we look forward to her joining us later this fall. Perhaps one of the most significant and moving events of the year occurred in August when we had our traditional white coat ceremony for the incoming class of 2025 medical students. So it really was an honor for Dean Zweig, the School of Medicine leaders, and myself to welcome these future doctors into the medical community. They represent our future, and it's deeply special to witness them putting on their white coats for the first time and taking the oath that we have all incoming students recite that signifies the start of their medical careers. Now I'd like to move on to updates regarding MU Healthcare. Once again, we are thrilled to note that our Vizient rankings among academic medical centers continue to rise, and now we are 21 among 101 in the last reporting quarter. Finally, we had a very strong year financially despite the pressures of COVID, and our market share continues to climb. We're constantly looking at opportunities for growth, and in Columbia, this involves standing up our new children's hospital, improving our ambulatory space, and continuing discussions with our partners, particularly in Jeff City. So this graph portrays how busy we continue to be. Our average daily census continues to be at an all-time high. We're averaging over 530 patients in hospital beds. I think 2 days ago we had 550, which is in part due to COVID, but it also reflects that we have not decreased any of our routine or elective hospitalizations, which also continue to be stable and rising. The new Children's Hospital groundbreaking is set for October 1st, and we hope that many of you will be there to attend in person or virtually. In this picture, TJ and the construction team are waving to us from the side of the future building. So, as you know, October 1st is the ceremonial groundbreaking, and it's already been preceded by actual initiation of the construction process. So we currently have a very large hole that will become the new hospital between the Ellis Fischel Cancer Center and the Next Gen building. The Missouri Medicaid healthcare plan progress continues to improve. So we're now back in the network for a United Healthcare Community Plan, and we successfully negotiated this in June. And so we are continuing discussions with the third provider. So we are now in 2 of the 3 Missouri Medicaid products. With regard to compliance, we are in the very last reporting period for the Corporate Integrity Agreement. The Health Affairs Committee recently approved the Corporate Integrity Agreement resolution, which states, quote, MU Health System has continued to make reasonable progress, unquote, on the federally mandated integrity agreement. So we are now assembling the final report to close this issue, which is due in the Office of Inspector General by October 1. And I want to end with some challenges that we continue to face at MU Healthcare and the School of Medicine. So for the School of Medicine, the continued presence of COVID challenges our education mission. But so far, we've been able to keep our medical students and other students on the wards and in the clinics. We must maintain and expand our clinical growth and we must remain vigilant and focus on assessing our revenue pressures and growth opportunities. Our faculty and staff are essential, and so recruiting and retaining the talent we need to achieve our mission is critical, and this issue is at the top of the agenda for the School of Medicine and MU Healthcare, and it has my full attention and that of the provost and president and the president's office as well. And with that, I'll finish my report, and Chair Chapman, I'm open for any questions the curators may have.
All right, thank you, Dr. Brown. Any questions from the board or from the Health Affairs Committee? Robin, I really should be turning this over to you.
Oh, no, it's fine.
Okay.
I'm not territorial. Go
All
ahead.
right.
Yes, does anybody on the committee and/or board have questions for Dr. Barron? You did that thorough of a report. Good job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, curators.
The Health Affairs Committee unanimously approved the minutes of the June 17th meeting last Thursday, and as Dr. Barron just referenced, the only other action was the unanimous approval of a resolution confirming that MU Health System has implemented an effective compliance program to meet the federal requirements under the Corporate Integrity Agreement. If there's no other questions, Mr. Chairman, this concludes the business of the Health Affairs Committee.
All right. I would like to recognize a former curator. John, he still serves on the Health Affairs Committee as a non-curator. Curator Phillips, can you stand up? I just want to recognize you. All right. It's great to see you, and we really appreciate you being here. It's good to be back at Umkc. All right. Good to see you.
I'll add in that he's a very active and engaged member of the Health Affairs Committee.
That's right, as he was on the board. That's right. So, all right, so now, Curator Graves, I'll turn it over to you for the Academic Student Affairs and Research and Economic Development Committee meeting.
All right, thank you, Chairman Chapman. This morning we have one informational item and 2 action items for the Academic Student Affairs, Research and Economic Development Committee. These include a presentation of name, image, and likeness from intercollegiate athletics, 1 new degree program proposal, and a resolution for a closed session of the committee. We'll be postponing the consideration of another planned action item so that we can learn more about it prior to voting. Let's now move on to our informational item. Today we're joined by athletic directors from MU and Umkc to provide an update on policy changes relating to the name, image, and likeness rights of our student athletes. We'll start with MU Athletic Director Desiree Reed-Francois, followed by Umkc Athletic Director Brandon Martin. Have they on their way in? Yeah. So we're going to go ahead and start with MU Athletic Director Desiree Reed-Francois. I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you very much. It's truly a privilege to be here, and we are excited about talking about name, image, and likeness. I have asked my compliance officer to give a general overview of this current state, not only of our program, but what the state of Missouri, what the laws are, and then the NCAA and Southeastern Conference regulations. So I'll turn it over to our compliance officer.
Good morning. I'm Andy Humes. I'm our Deputy Athletic Director for Administration, and as Desiree said, I oversee our compliance office. So just going to go through a few slides with you here and talk about the state law in Missouri and the rules that are in effect regarding name, image, likeness. There we go. So name, image, likeness. Student athletes can receive compensation for the non-institutional use of their name, image, likeness. So this was the Missouri state law that went into effect in August, but was passed this spring. So we're now operating under the auspices of the Missouri state law. NIL activities can include, but aren't limited to, social media endorsements, commercials, appearances, autograph signings, other business activities. An important note, the institution, including any officer, director, or employee of the institution, cannot compensate or cause compensation to be directed to a student athlete, prospect, or their family members for NIL activities. Additionally, student athletes cannot receive NIL compensation conditioned on their athletic performance or as an inducement to attend the University of Missouri. That also extends to an inducement to stay at the University of Missouri, right? So if someone was looking to transfer, it can't be for related to NIL related to keeping them at an institution. Oops. So some limitations based on the state law. A student athlete cannot enter into an agreement if the contract conflicts with a university contract, absent permission from the university. A student athlete cannot engage in NIL activities that violate the university or athletic department code of conduct, things like gambling, drug use, et cetera. Participate in NIL activity during team activities, so they can't wear a brand other than team brands during a game or press conference, things along those lines. Cannot use university logos, marks, phrases without proper licensing, and cannot use content created by the university for NIL activities. So reporting, there is a disclosure requirement as part of the state law. Student athletes must report all activities, NIL activities, to the university. They need to do that prior to signing any contract, prior to receiving any compensation. All activities must be reported in advance and pre-approved by the athletics compliance office. Student athletes can utilize an agent or attorney to assist with NIL activities, and the agents and attorneys must be licensed in the state of Missouri. The university must provide financial development educational sessions to the student athletes annually. At Mizzou, we've arranged for sessions to be provided on taxation, financial literacy and banking, personal branding, digital marketing, social media, and entrepreneurship. A couple provisions about contractual conflicts with the university. Student athletes can't participate in NIL activities if the contract conflicts with a contract between the university and a third party, and then they can request prior approval to enter into such a contract that will be reviewed by the university. Lastly, there are some specific elements to the state law regarding apparel, beverage, and equipment contracts. So student athlete can't participate in NIL activities for an apparel, beverage, or equipment company during any team activity. And during any and all team, official team activities, student athletes are required to wear official team apparel and equipment. So that's the quick and dirty version of the recap of the state law and the policies that are in effect at Mizzou. And I should have mentioned at the beginning, and apologize, have worked with Randy and Dr. Martin at UMKC, putting that together because essentially, you know, we're all operating under the same state law and the same provisions and policies are in effect.
I have one quick question, if I could.
Sure.
Using their name and likeness for the benefit of the university, such as on tickets, A, is that permitted? And B, can they charge us for that?
Great question. So typically student athletes, you know, have and will continue to sign rights to the institution for using their name, image, likeness for activities benefiting the university. So that will not change. Could a student athlete try and essentially be compensated for that? No, again, because they do sign that contract at the beginning of each year as part of being a student athlete.
So if a student athlete does not sign that contract with the university, are they allowed to participate in athletics at the university?
It's a great question, one we haven't come across yet. I think with the ever-changing world, you know, in college athletics and the NIL landscape, it's one we need to potentially anticipate, but it's not something we've had to come across
I
yet.
think you probably need to anticipate that.
Yeah.
Andy, I've got a question on, you know, I don't know if it's like the next level of NIL or all the same thing, but the company, I think it's Brander, I forget what it is, but that is some of the schools, and I believe, you know, you guys are involved in that. Could you talk a little bit about what the difference is, or if that's just a little bit different, I guess?
Yeah, so specifically with Brander, but there are obviously a lot of, you know, we've seen a lot of companies and others out there that have their pitch in the NIL space. Brander specifically is an outfit that looks to utilize group licensing with student athletes. So they will essentially act as on the behalf of a group of student athletes to potentially pair them with companies for use of name, image, likeness. And so whereas a student athlete individually can enter into a name, image, likeness deal on their own, there are companies like Brander out there that will collectively have those student athletes combined for group licensing and along with that be able to utilize the logos and marks of the institution. So that's their essential model.
Is that what's different, that they could potentially use the logos and marks of the institution?
Correct, yeah, that's kind of how they're approaching that and with the institutions is they make the agreement with the institutions to use the licensing and then that way they can use it in co-branding with group licensing with their student athletes.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
If I may. Sure. Curator Holbrook, you asked a really important question in terms of if a student athlete their image is on the cover of a ticket or on the cover of a media guide, et cetera. So the at the beginning of the year, our student athletes sign a form. It's called pursuant to NCAA bylaw 12511. I believe it hasn't changed, has it? All right. So NCAA bylaw 12511 that specifically affords the university the right to use the student athlete's name, image, and likeness for purposes of promoting the university and their respective sport. However, the student athlete could always retract that license, if you will. And again, athletics is a privilege, not a right. And so we would take every case on a case-by-case basis.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, now we're going to turn the lectern over to UMKC Athletic Director Brandon Martin.
Thank you, Curator Graves. Delighted to be here, and congrats again to my colleague Desiree for her new appointment. When we speak of name, image, and likeness, there's a wide spectrum of things that we need to strongly consider. And, you know, one is not only the state law, but also, you know, recruiting and things of that nature. But I want to turn it over now to Randy Koralik, our Director of Compliance, who's going to talk a little bit more specifically about how that impacts us at UMKC Athletics.
Good morning. Thank you for having us today. I'm the Assistant AD for Compliance. I'm Randy Koralik here at UMKC. So basically what Andy had basically just said from the state law standpoint, that is what we're following. Again, we're in a different conference, right? So SEC to Summit League, that's the other part of it that we have to take into consideration when it comes to NIL activities. So we're doing a few things differently. We contract with different certain It's called Influencer. We have also Game Plan. So I'm not going to get into those too much at this point, but when it comes to that, we are certainly following the state law when it comes to NIL, and our policy is basically geared toward, as Andy said, we basically have worked together in partnership to design this policy and procedure when it comes to that. So if there's any questions, I'll certainly take them from the UMKC perspective.
Does anybody have any other questions?
I do. I want, Desiree, if you don't mind, I want a follow-up question on your statement. I just thought about this.
Yes, sir.
Would it be legal for the university if a student athlete says, yes, you can use my picture on the ticket or the cover, but I want you to pay me $1,000 to use that image? Is that a legal transaction or not?
Well, I think it would be, by definition, a legal transaction.
Well, we're going to stay within the rules.
I think I'd have to refer and review our state law. On its,
Just a minute,
my
Desiree.
first blush.
Just a minute, Desiree. Council's advising me this is a legal question that I should not be asking in this setting.
Thank you, Council
So
Owens. I appreciate that.
I will withdraw my question.
Thank you very much. I was wondering, I'm not licensed in the state of thank you.
As you each have been developing your programs, how is there work still to be done? What's the opportunities?
Yes, ma'am.
What's next steps?
Yes, ma'am, and we're going to talk a little further about next steps.
Closed session.
Yes, ma'am.
Good enough.
Thank you.
All right, if no one else has any question, thanks to you all for joining us, and we'll move on to our next item. Thank you. Okay, our action item, first action item this morning is a new degree proposal for a Bachelor of Applied Science to be offered by the University of Missouri, Kansas City. I'm going to hand it over to the Interim Associate Dean of the College of Arts and Sciences, Dr. Caitlin Horseman, and her team for a brief presentation on that.
Thank you, Curator Graves. I am here to express the enthusiastic support of Dean Toivonen, Dean of the College of Arts and Sciences here at UMKC, for the Bachelor of Applied Sciences degree. This interdisciplinary program also has the support of the Deans of the School of Nursing and Health Science, the School of Computing and Engineering, and the Block School of Management. Letters of their support is included in the proposal. The BAS degree is a strategic priority as a part of UMKC Forward. It is my pleasure to now introduce my colleague Beth Vanami, Professor of Political Science and Associate Dean for Budgeting and Financial Affairs, who will give you a brief overview of the degree. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll have to lower this. Thank you, Caitlin, and thank you, Curator Graves, for this opportunity to talk to you about the Bachelor of Applied Science degree. The Bachelor of Applied Science degree is targeted and designed for students who already have an Associate of Applied Science degree. This is less familiar to many people, but it's a technical degree that's focused on a specific career path. In the state of Missouri alone, 3,500 students graduate each year with an Associate of Applied Science degree. Yet when they seek higher education for career advancement or a career shift, what they find is that many of their AAS credits do not transfer to a typical four-year degree program. And so that's where we come in with the BAS degree. It's designed to allow these students to apply their technical credits toward their four-year degree program to ensure that they can save time and money and graduate within 2 years of entering the university. This is one reason our community college partners are really enthusiastic about this degree, is because it gives their students who graduate with an AAS a path towards a four-year degree program. Also included in the proposal are letters of support from employers and alums who also recognize the importance of this degree for employers. We've combined a curriculum that focuses on core skill development cited by employers as critical for their future employees, things like critical thinking skills, leadership skills, communication skills, with a development of expertise in high-demand fields like data analytics, business and organizational leadership, health services management, digital media, and digital humanities. Now for the financial piece, because I know that's important to everyone. Because we rely on existing faculty expertise, we expect to turn a profit within the first year of this program. Now, it'll be a small profit at first, but over the next 5 years, we expect a cumulative return of about $1.6 million on this program. So just to summarize quickly, we believe this is a great program because it uses our existing faculty resources. It creates a high-quality educational program. It also recruits a new group of students that is underserved by the system at this point in time, and it equips the region's workforce with really critical and high-demand skills in education. So I'm happy to answer any questions about the proposal that you might have, and thank you again for your time.
Yeah, I have a question.
Sure.
How many other competing programs in the state or the region are there?
Yeah, so there are 2 competing programs in the state of Missouri. So Northwest has a program, and so does Missouri Southern. I'm happy to talk about the differences if that's of interest.
Yes, sure.
Okay, so when you look at BAS programs across the country, there's usually 2 types. There's some programs that extend the AAS training, and they sort of just like a higher level training of what you've already done at the AAS level. Then there's others that are really just generic completion programs where the students come in and they choose a minor that already exists at the university and they complete a degree. We decided that we wanted to take a slightly different, and that's the paths that you see at Missouri Southern and Northwest Missouri respectively. We decided that we wanted to do something a little different and really make this a degree that is meaningful and useful for students. And so we focused on, we pulled a bunch of employer surveys, we talked to our alums and our local employers, and what we found is that what they really want is these students to have these critical core skills. That's what's missing from their AAS training. And then we also wanted to not just extend that training, but to give them, these students, an opportunity to develop high demand skills. That is, being able to take jobs in data analytics and health services management, business and organizational leadership, which are really important and growing fields, and we wanted to give them that opportunity, not just make it sort of an extension on what they've already done.
Okay. Any other questions?
I was going to compliment you on how collaborative and efficient this looks like as you're working with the different colleges within your university. But my question is, knowing that this is an opportunity for the system, as you referenced, will this be online so that the other system, all students in the state, but specifically thinking about our 4 institutions?
Thank you for that question, Curator. Yes, this has been a very, not just a cross-campus collaboration, but we've been working quite handily with our counterparts especially at Umsl, because they have a similar target population we see with regard to the AAS degree. And we see this as sort of a first step for the system, and we think that if we can get this going and really perfected, may be a little exaggerated, but really get it going and get it off the ground, then I think we can venture into the online space pretty quickly. But because this is a population that hasn't been in school for very long, I really feel like we need to get hands-on with them first and then see how we can move to the online space with them. But I don't see any reason why we can't use this as a model for the 3 other campuses and then the 4th, the online campus too. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I have a question, and surprisingly, it's a financial question. So I'm looking at your expense and your revenues, and I see your expenses listed. Here, my question is, how are you taking into account, I will call it the overhead? I don't see it accounted for in here.
Sure.
So help me out understand that.
Yeah, so what's in the actual proposal that you see in Table 2 is part of a larger pro forma that we complete with the university, and it does include overhead in that pro forma. And so the revenue that you see in here is not the actual tuition dollar that a student pays. It's a reduction on that to account for overhead.
Do you know what that reduction is?
Off the top of my head, what we actually account for here is $288 per credit hour.
Okay.
And students, at the time that we did the proposal, were paying $306 per credit hour.
Curator Hobera.
Okay, so we have 10%, 12%. Okay, yes.
I think the number that was used was about $40 per credit hour.
Okay. And that is, I'm assuming that's just including, to cover that overhead, all state support, all charitable contributions and whatnot. If by chance we lost state support, and you tried to run a program like that, and I understand it would affect every program on the university, so I'm not just picking this one, so I'm trying to understand, if I could, a little bit. If I lost state support in the what'd you say, Molly, $38?
$40. The number varies year by year.
How much, if we lost state support, that $40 would become what? Do you have an idea?
It'll increase 4 or 5-fold.
4 or 5-fold. So without state support, this would not be an economically viable program, but then you could say that about every other program on campus, probably.
We are very appreciative of the state support, and it's much needed.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, if there's no further discussion, may I have a motion from the committee that the new degree proposal for a Bachelor of Applied Science at the University of Missouri, Kansas City be approved?
So moved.
It's been moved. A second from the committee? Is there a second from the committee?
I'll second.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor on the committee, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? All right, the motion carries. Mr. Chairman, on behalf of the Academic, Student Affairs, Research, and Economic Development Committee, I move to recommend to the full board that the new degree proposal for a Bachelor of Applied Science at UMKC be approved.
Thank you. Okay, the motion has been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Do we have any abstentions? Okay, the motion passes. All right, back to you, Curator.
Okay, our last action item this morning is for an executive session of the committee. I would now entertain a motion and second from the committee to hold a committee meeting in closed session this afternoon.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Cindy, please call the roll of the committee.
Curator Graves,
Aye.
Curator Hobrock,
Aye.
Curator Lehman,
Aye.
Curator Winokur.
Aye.
Okay, you have all committee votes in favor.
All right, Mr. Chairman, that concludes the public session for the Academic, Student Affairs, Research, and Economic Development Committee.
Okay, thank you, Curator Graves. We're a little bit ahead on time, so what we've decided to do is to shift the agenda around just a little bit and have Chancellor Agrawal present the University of Missouri Kansas City campus highlights portion of our agenda now. So, Chancellor Agrawal, we look forward to hearing your presentation. Thank you.
First of all, let me welcome everyone to campus. It's a beautiful day outside. If you have a little bit of time, make sure to walk around. This is a beautiful campus right in the middle of this great city. Before I start, Chairman Chapman, I wanted to bring this up. This is an issue of the Ingram magazine, which has come up with this list of 50 Missourians that you should know, and Chairman Chapman is on this list, so congratulations.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Molly.
And
Molly.
Curator Winokur as well.
That's right.
I guess I didn't get down to the W's. I just saw the C.
Congratulations,
And
Rob.
President Choi is as well.
Anyone else on the board that's been on? All right. Well, thank you, Molly, for recognizing that.
You're welcome. Thank you. So this past year or past 18 months, UMKC has been affected by the pandemic like every other institution in the nation and perhaps the world. But one thing we were not ready to do was to get beat up by this pandemic. We wanted to emerge from this pandemic with more energy, more vigor, and more excitement. We also realized that we had reached a point of inflection, that we had to change some things and reimagine UMKC for the future. And so during the past few months, faculty, staff, students, and community members in a large group took on this task, and they re-examined UMKC. And based on the recommendations, we came up with a new course for UMKC, and it is known as UMKC Forward. Let me see, let me move ahead here. Wow. All right. So this initiative will position UMKC for long-term academic success as well as financial stability. And we're going to invest $60 million of internal funds that we have been able to identify over the next 5 years in innovative programs in 5 key areas: student success, and I'll talk more about each of these areas in more detail: student success, faculty development, research excellence, career expansion, which is reaching out to our community for their career expansion if they already have a degree, and also engaging with their community in a more meaningful fashion and making sure that the community meets our 2 greatest assets, our students and our faculty. So as far as funding for UMKC Forward is concerned, we know that we cannot just wait for new external funds to come in, though we certainly hope there will be new funds. But to get things started, we looked at internal realignment, and we also looked at academic unit realignment. We looked at the budgets of all administrative areas. And based on those, we were able to find the $60 million that we're going to invest. Of course, we are going to be looking at philanthropy, grants, and a net tuition revenue increase as we do better with the enrollment and better with retention. So going back to the student success piece, we are making a very, what some may consider subtle, but a very definite and important change in our outlook. Most academic institutions are very focused in getting the student a degree. We asking a deeper question: is the degree the end, or should we be helping the student with the career that they have in mind? And there is a subtle but important difference. So we want to make sure that the students graduate from here ready for high-paying professional jobs. I would like to point out that almost 70% of our student population at UMKC, which may be similar to what Umsl has, will check one or more of the following 3 boxes. Either they are first-generation students, or they're underrepresented minorities, or they're Pell or high-need students. So for those student populations, we want to make sure that they are on track for more than a degree. They're on track for a professional career. So with that in mind, we're launching this professional mobility escalator model, and we'll launch with 4 tracks: healthcare, education, engineering and business put together, law and justice. We will talk to the students as they come in, help them decide what's their long-term career plan, and then put them on one of these escalators to help them get there. So this is the different pieces here, and there's a lot of detail here, so we can discuss this offline. But at entry, the entry can be at multiple levels. We can have them come on at a high school level, full-time, fresh student coming in here, or a transfer student. So if you can imagine, just visualize perhaps a large mall with escalators going to different floors. We can make sure that students can get on to these escalators at different levels. The core experiences and services will have cohorted summer bridge, living learning communities, special advising, career services, academic support, mentoring. We're going to make sure that every student has a mentor, either internal or from the community. So the community will have to play a big role in this. Professional access preparation. If they're, for instance, going to apply for law school, if that's the intention, helping them realize that there is a test called LSAT that they have to take, and how do they prepare for it, MCAT for medicine. So those are the kinds of things that students may not be thinking about that we will help them with. There will be signature applied experiences of service learning and internship, and then very importantly, leadership badging that will be transcripted. So this may not be for credit, but it's layered onto the courses in terms of getting them ready for the workplace out there. Now, you cannot achieve all of this unless you have just great faculty. And so we oftentimes assume that a faculty member is hired and they know exactly what to do, and there's no more professional development help needed, which is not always true. So we are launching this model, Center for Advancing Faculty Excellence Cafe, which, by the way, Chancellor Degani, we stole the name from you. So we'll have different pillars: teaching and learning pillar, research and creativity. So helping them figure out what's the best delivery system available now. How do you do assessments? Then on the research end, how do you write better grants, and how do we support you to do that? community engagement, helping them engage with the community so they can solve problems that the community has. And then faculty orientation. We usually used to have a new faculty orientation of 1 day, and then they were on their own. But we're going to extend that to full year of helping them learn what it means to be a faculty. Then for mid-career programs, how do we help them kind of revive the careers of their floundering? And also, and President Choi has brought this up several times, we need to make sure that the people that we put into administrative roles, like department chairs, are trained to carry out the jobs. So we're excited about that. Research is a very important piece, and I will be talking more about that later this afternoon along with President Choi. But just to mention that to get research excellence, although we're making great strides, we are investing as part of UMKC Forward in infrastructure. We need to support our faculty with better grant writers, with pre- and post-award staff, certified staff who can help them, and also hiring faculty in clusters in certain areas of emphasis. So instead of hiring 1 or 2, just like Dr. Barron is doing in certain areas, hire them in clusters so they support each other. So all of those things will be going on. We will also add faculty, and I'll make the case later this afternoon. We'll invest $5 million over the next 3 years. We have been losing faculty over the past several years at a very rapid rate, and that cannot sustain us either on the education side or on the research side. How do we reach out to the community if there are people already out there working, adult learners and corporate development programs? We're going to launch a badging and certificate program. This will not be for credit, and this will all be outside our academic arena. This will be done independently through our innovation center. Maria Myers, who some of you may know, who launched KC SourceLink, which is now Missouri SourceLink and is also being exported out to the rest of the country, is the one that is leading this from a very business point of view. We'll be reaching out to adult learners, short courses, weekend courses, corporate talent development, working directly with corporations for cohorts of students. So we're excited about that. We have had a soft launch of this already, and the areas that we are launching with are leadership training, data science training, diversity and inclusion training, which is where the corporations are reaching out to us. And then lastly in this is increasing our student-faculty engagement with the community. We have a lot of advisory boards that we do have that come and advise the administration. What we want to do is switch it to where a lot of our students are actually doing internships and experiential learning embedded in the community. I tell our folks here that I envision a day there will be hundreds, if not thousands of UMKC students on any given semester embedded in the community, working with their potential employers, getting to know them, getting to learn how to work in the workplace, potentially setting up their jobs for the future, but also, most importantly, being the best ambassadors that they can be for UMKC. So that's the goal there. And also engaging a faculty with the community so they can solve the problems, whether they're social issues or technical issues or business issues. If we have expertise here, they should be helping the community. So big effort in that area too. So that's in a nutshell what UMKC Forward is here. We have great support at this point in time, and we're investing our money, but we are also going to be gearing up for a comprehensive campaign for fundraising to further fund this. But we did not want to wait to get that first. So as I said, we have looked for efficiencies. We have found money within. So we're investing, and we are on our way. But we'll continue to come back to you to report, as well as perhaps ask for assistance where it may be needed. I want to switch a little bit quickly to give you some exciting news from the School of Medicine. As you know, the School of Medicine is very unique for us. We have one of the only 3 6-year medical schools in the nation. Dr. Barron is a product of this. It's straight out of high school. It's not a 3+3 or 3+ whatever. Straight out of high school, first semester, 18-year-old, in the hospitals doing rounds with the doctors while they're also getting their BA degree. So very unique, very, very much in demand. We are a community-based medical school, a little different than what we have in Columbia. That means a lot of our faculty are actually employees of our partner hospitals. And so we kind of buy the time out, if you would, and give them our titles, but they do the instruction. So we are not very heavy in terms of our own faculty base. But that works great for us because we have great partners with Truman Medical, St. Luke's, Children's Mercy, and now as I'll talk about Mosaic Health. Now, we had not in the past participated in rankings for the medical school, and last year was the first time we actually put in data. And we were pleasantly surprised at where we landed with the first go-around. 17th in most graduates practicing in medically underserved areas, 64th in primary care, 83rd in research, and in 78th in most diverse medical schools. Not that this means that we can sit back, this just gives us a baseline, but we are happy about where we are starting, and I know we have work to do. Now, talking about shortages of physicians in the nation, in the rural areas, but especially in Missouri, this chart is hard to read, but basically it gives you the number of physicians per county in our state. And there are areas where you see the lightest color, where there's one physician in those counties, one physician for the whole county. People have to drive 60 miles to go just see a doctor. We need to change that. And so with that in mind, we launched a new satellite campus in St. Joseph's, Missouri, in collaboration with a new partner there, Mosaic Health, and they will be, they have 350 tertiary care facilities and 40 rural clinics. We have started with 20 students. These will be in the 4-year MD program. They're already there, and we'll be adding 20 more each year till we get it to a total of 80. These students will train entirely up at St. Joe. They will be taught on some of the courses online from here, but all the clinical work will be in St. Joe in rural areas. There's evidence that shows that students who train in certain areas tend to stay there. So that increases the chances that these people will get to love rural medicine and then stay in those areas. So we are really excited about that. We will, in the future, add residency programs in collaboration with Mosaic Health so that the students can stay longer in those areas and actually get the residency training there as well. Must acknowledge Senator Blunt in this respect because he was very helpful in us acquiring the HRSA grant of $12 million that has helped us launch this. And also Representative Brenda Shields from that area who was very helpful in getting this done. So truly appreciative of all the help we got. The white coat ceremony there was done recently. Great excitement there. Been up to meet the students, just really, really outstanding students. And there's a lot of excitement at Mosaic Health and in that whole area. They had not seen anything like this before. So we are happy to take Umkc out to the community. Switching topics, first-gen rules. Almost 39–40% of our student population is first generation, and we want to make sure that they have all the resources to succeed. We launched a special program for first-gen rules, first-gen rules scholars program in 2019, and we started with small cohort. We do, this one is, okay, we'll just go there. Launched in 2019, 40 students per semester. They go through some special bridge programs. They come in early. They're taught about financial responsibilities, about this college lingo, how to hire technology. And very early results are showing that they have higher GPAs and are retained at higher rates than all full-time students and other first-gen students who have not been through the program. So we'll be watching this carefully and then expanding this. Research excellence, we're going to be talking a lot more this afternoon, so I won't won't show you all the graphs and charts that I will this afternoon, but I'll just highlight a couple of our faculty that have been doing exceedingly well. Holly Hagel, who is in the area of addiction science, works a lot with Umsl as well. Opioid addiction. Research awards over the past 5 years, $43 million. Tony Caruso, that curator Holloway got to meet yesterday. He's in physics and engineering and does a lot of classified work and other work for defense. $36 million over the past 5 years in research grants. And just this past week, we signed another contract for him with the Defense Department for another additional $8 million. I want to show you these just to give you a glimpse of the kind of excellence we have here at UMKC and projection all across the UM system. Peter Cullen in the medical school, glaucoma, macular degeneration, he works on the eye, 5-year research award, $16 million. Dr. Janet Berkeley-Patton, who is doing a lot with community help, and she's now heading up our Institute for Health Equity at the School of Medicine. And she has some unique programs highly funded by NIH, where she's taking medical care out to underserved areas, but working through local businesses and through churches. And it's actually having a lot of impact and doing science on this at the same time. She's just getting going, and I think we said $5 million, 5-year total for her, but I would say that 9.5 is mostly in the past 3 years, and she just received $5 million from the county, who reached out to us to help with healthcare and vaccinations in the more challenged areas of the city. So that was the first time the county had given a grant like that to anyone, and it came to UMKC. And Alexis Petrie is doing a lot of work on STEM education and just received a $5.5 million in collaboration and has a $10 million national STEM education initiative with a couple of other institutions, and that's coming from NSF. All right. This is very sensitive here. October 1st, you all are welcome. I invite you to come back to our campus. We will be doing the grand opening of the Plaster Center, which is the extension of our engineering building, and $30-some million extension. It is, folks, the most high-tech engineering building, and I'm not kidding, in a few 100-mile radius right now. And I would love for you to come with time to spare, because I can guarantee you, you would not want to leave, especially when you go into artificial reality and VR labs. It's just a lot of fun, and a lot of 3D printing labs and opportunities for our students. So great addition there. Of course, Data Science, Analytics, and Innovation Center that we have launched in collaboration with Mizzou. Got a little slow there. We are looking for a national search right now for a director, executive director, but we also hired the first Tiger Roof faculty, which is Dr. Russ Whitman, who is at Mizzou, but also partially here. And he's carving out the whole medical piece of this data science, and he's going to be running that. And he is on his way. I mean, he runs hard. So we're trying to support him and make sure that he builds that piece with MU Health, with Cerner, and with UMKC and our partners here. And we are building that offices and some of the computational facilities here in the Plaster Research Center, although a lot of the computation will be coming from Amazon and Google and others that we can contract with. Okay, so didn't want to say that everything is so rosy. We do have some challenges. Aging capital infrastructure, as Chancellor Degani said down at S&T, we have very significant challenges as well. 25% of our facilities are due for replacement based on FCNI, and 30% are nearing replacement age. So this is a challenge we have to work with to see how do we finance all these renovations, or if they're at a point where it's better not to renovate, but just demolish and build new. Enrollment management will continue to be a challenge, especially in post-COVID, and the decline in high school graduates in the Midwest and in the Northeast. So we have to figure out how exactly do we differentiate ourselves from other institutions, and that's part of the reason we're doing UMKC Forward and the Professional Mobility Escalator, so that people come here to get something that nobody else is doing. And then declining faculty numbers that I can talk about later this afternoon. So ending on some new root tradition, some fun stuff. So when I first arrived here, the Student Government Association wanted to give me a gift UMKC something in honor of my coming here. And we decided on a roo statue, a kangaroo statue. We did not used to have anything iconic on a campus where you could take pictures. I mean, like the columns at Mizzou. And so we contracted with Tom Carbon, who's now a world-famous sculptor out of Kansas City. If you go to the Kaufman Gardens or north of the city, the children playing, or the Fireman's Memorial, these are very large sculptures that he has done. He is now very, very expensive, but he gave us a good rate. And here is the roo at night. And sure enough, it quickly became the place to take pictures of students as taking selfies, or at this convocation time, families congregating there, and we hope that this will be a legacy thing where maybe when their grandchildren come to UMKC, they can be taking the same pictures. So there's a lot of excitement on that. That first year, we did graduation ceremonies virtually after COVID. As you remember, the whole city lit up in blue in honor of UMKC. All the major buildings downtown and Union Station and the plaza, everybody was in blue. That was really uplifting for our students. This past spring, we decided we wanted to do an in-person graduation, as students deserve that. So we worked with the trustees, board of trustees, and several of them have ownership of the Royals. And so it was UMKC at the K, and the graduation ceremony was at the Royal Stadium, which was a huge, huge hit. Curator Williams was there for all ceremonies, although at least a couple of the ceremonies got a lot of rain. And I can tell you the students did not care, because they were looking at the Crown Vision, and the Crown Vision is 85 feet by 110 feet. And when you get projected up there, and so the students, some of them had the raincoats on at times. At other times, they would have the raincoats on till they got close to me, and then they would rip them off because then they were on TV. Huge, huge excitement. I think we've reached a tipping point. I don't think we can come back to Swinney here on campus to do any more graduation ceremonies. So we are going to be looking forward to working with the partners, whether the T-Mobile Center or the K or Arrowhead, for our graduations. And as you can see, the rain didn't affect the students. They just had a great time. And then lastly, this semester, we started off with great energy. It's great energy on part of our students. They're so happy to be back. Our faculty and students, staff are so happy to have the students back. As you can see, large gatherings, soccer games. There on the top, you see my wife being introduced. And I just mentioned this because she has been very active on campus. She volunteers a lot. She goes and talks to students a lot. And I've noticed that when she gets introduced, after I get introduced, the applause is about 10 times louder for her. So maybe she shouldn't be introduced. Anyways, this has been a great start. We are going to continue with the excitement, and we are on a good trajectory. So thank you. I'll take any questions.
Any questions for Chancellor Agrawal?
I have one about Talent Link. Will you talk about who that's intended for? Because I saw it as corporate partners. Then it sounded like adult learners. Are you also trying to help alums increase their career trajectory?
So adult learners would include all people with degrees and without degrees, but mostly people with degrees, because not everyone, we need our skill sets to be enhanced nowadays because the world moves too quick. Not everyone is able to come back and sign up for a second degree and get a master's or a PhD. So what is an alternate way of providing education for a community? So these short badges and certificates. Now, someday, it's possible that higher education will get to a point, and accrediting bodies will get to a point where you could string these badges and certificates together to give somebody a degree, more like bite-sized education. But we're not there yet nationally. But our community needs this, and there's great demand for it, and it's a good way to also look at how do we increase the revenue.
Mm-hmm. Great, thank you.
Any more questions for Chancellor Agrawal? All right.
Thank you.
All right, well, thank you, Chancellor Agrawal. We appreciate all your hard work and all the accomplishments that you and your faculty, staff, and students are doing on this campus. Okay, we're now going to break for lunch. During lunch today, we'll have the pleasure to visit with students from UMKC out in the hallway and foyer areas. These are students who are leaders and working with fellow students to ensure that everyone succeeds. Lunch is also set up for the curators in that same area. Enjoy interacting with the students and each other, and we'll plan to reconvene the board meeting at around 12:45. Does that work, Cindy? Okay, at 12:45, we'll reconvene. All right, so break for lunch.